In the grand hall, a young man asks, "Isn't it madness to fight with your own?" Night production mage Joshua accuses Logan of wanting to steal territory. Log, captain of the Knights, angrily strikes the table, enraged that he was called a thief. Memory reveals to Log a brave commander who courageously fights the Demon King's army. On the dark panel, it was written that at that very moment he began to change. Flashback shows Log's immersion into a decadent noble life full of endless parties. Someone off-screen who dared to call the plan an invasion is brutally silenced with a log. Joshua sadly says that Loeb, whom he respected as the eldest member, now only complains. He firmly states that he will not use his magic to create tools for killing the innocent. With pain in his chest, he begs Log to return to the man he once was. Joshua says he cannot work for an order that attacks its own people. Logan's face freezes in the shadow of silent rage as he listens to the performance. He sharply interrupted Joshua, coldly and contemptuously throwing his name. With absolute contempt, Loeb decisively declares that he does not need Joshua. He grabs a dagger and accuses Joshua, supposedly because of lousy tools they cannot fight. Other knights whisper, agreeing that production mages are freeloaders who are easy to replace. The dagger clattered on the floor, and muffled cries indicated that this was exactly why they could not fight. Joshua quietly asks Logan if he is really no longer needed in the order. Loeb coldly says that he does not need those who refuse to obey his orders. He delivers the final, cruel insult, "Disgusting freeloader, go away." Warm memory flows. Young Loeb enthusiastically praised Joshua's swords as the best in the world. Broken and heartbroken, Joshua whispered his name and accepted his fate. With shoulders down, he turns and walks away from the council hall. He leaves behind him echoes the cruel laughter of his former comrades. Having left the order, Joshua set off south to the front line in search of work. He sighs heavily, pondering how to make a living with his production magic. His unique ability allows him to create almost anything from raw materials. He travels light, only his tiny slime companion Wiz is nearby. Suddenly something rustled in the nearby bushes. He flinched in fright. He cautiously sneaks toward the sound. His slimy companion slides behind him. A tattered and wounded young woman with blonde hair emerges from the leaves. Seeing that she is bleeding, he rushes to her and anxiously asks what happened. The woman turns and decisively orders the approaching group of men to stop. A trio of slave hunters emerges, boasting a fine treasure they have caught. The armed men stood ominously over the wolf pelt they had obtained. Joshua sharply pulled the woman behind him and stood before the illegal slave hunters. Realizing that they had been noticed, the hunters decided the witness must be destroyed. Calmly focusing, Joshua extends his hand and utters a single command: devour. The hunters' axes and hands vanished instantly, leaving them in complete confusion. He cried out in bewilderment, asking where their weapons had gone. Joshua emotionally explains how he disassembles the absorbed axis into parts and reforges it. Preparing for a counterattack, he loudly shouts the name of his new weapon, steel arrow. A hail of sharp projectiles bursts forward, piercing the unprepared hunters. The blonde gaped in astonishment. She couldn't believe he defeated them with a single strike. Joshua admits that he was nervous, but his opponents were not particularly strong. Amid the chaos, the captured wolf seizes the opportunity to escape. He turns to the woman with a gentle smile and softly asks if she is okay. Overwhelmed with emotion, she thanks him for the rescue and immediately faints from her wounds. He without hesitation rushed to her side, preparing to cast a healing spell. As soon as the magic began to work, she quietly whispered that she felt pleasantly warm. He notices that the wound on her abdomen might reopen, so he is already preparing to treat it. Thanks to his crafting skill, he instantly materializes a roll of clean bandages. He asks for permission to bandage her wound, and she agrees without hesitation. Tightly tightening the bandage, he tells her that it will hold for a little longer. She sincerely and warmly thanks him and without hesitation introduces herself, Ilia Demon. He calls himself Joshua, and she softly repeats his name. Ilia became dizzy from blood loss, and Joshua instantly caught her to keep her on her feet. Worried that she might be attacked again, he offers to escort her home. She apologizes for the trouble caused and gratefully accepts his kind offer. Calming her, he calls his slime assistant Wiz to carry his backpack. He effortlessly lifts the embarrassed Ilia into his arms and carries her. She clearly blushed and flushed with a rosy tint from this sudden intimate gesture. After he asked if she wanted it differently, she quietly agreed to be carried. Remembering the defeated hunters, he decides to gather their weapons and armor. With one gesture, all the equipment disappears in a magical puff. He explains to the puzzled Ilia that he hid everything in a magical chest. Having finished all the tasks, they finally set off through the forest. Ilia points to a clearing. It is her village. Their arrival was immediately met with hostility. Demon villagers with spears rushed at them. A horned girl named Meta rushed forward, sighing with relief she found Ilia. Her gaze catches Joshua, and she immediately recognizes him as human. Meta swung her spear and demanded that he release Ilia immediately. Ilia instantly intervenes and shouts that Joshua saved her. Meta expresses her deep disbelief. She cannot believe that a person is capable of such a thing. Ilia Gross is upset and asks herself why her friend refuses to believe her. Other demon hands stand guard, their faces grim and tired. Joshua gently put Ilia down and quietly said that he does not want to fight. Ilia grabbed his hand and pleaded for him to stay until she can repay his kindness. Tears in her eyes, she blames herself for not being strong enough. Joshua looks at the confused Ilia and quietly whispers her name, full of anxiety. Their touching conversation was suddenly interrupted by a villager's cry, "Trouble." A man runs in and shouts that a young boy was pierced by the tusks of a boar in armor. Another demon reacted irritably. He had warned that one should not fight such creatures. Joshua grabbed the giant boar, a monster much stronger than 10 human hunters. Ilia tugged Joshua's sleeve, drawing his attention amid the bustle. She asks him to wait in the village, hoping to repay him with her help. She explained that she knows simple healing magic. She thinks that maybe she can help. The group rushed to a small cluster of huts where a crowd had gathered. They came and saw how worried villagers surrounded a severely wounded man. The man apologizes to Ilia, explaining that he just wanted meat for his children. Joshua looks at the scene with a thoughtful and compassionate gaze. He understands that reckless act was born out of a father's love. Ilia kneels beside the man, gently asks him to relax and prepares to help. She explains to Joshua that this man saved her, and he resolutely sets about stopping the bleeding. Joshua casts a simple healing spell, but it turns out to be insufficient. The healer sees that the bleeding won't stop and prepares to cauterize the wound. Stepping inside, Joshua asks his slime companion Wiz for help. A small piece broke off from the slime and gently fell into his palm. He announced that he would use it properly by brewing a potion from it. Slime in his outstretched palm turns into a thick, viscous liquid. Joshua warns the wounded demon, "Prepare yourself, the potion he is applying now will sting." The man's eyes widened in surprise and he whispered, stammering that it doesn't hurt at all. The witness shouts in shock as the man's heavy bleeding suddenly stops. Joshua mentally understands that his gelatinous slime serves as both a bandage and medicine. Ilia held his breath, not believing that the wound that nearly killed him healed so completely. The horned girl froze in admiration and exclaimed that this miraculous healing is the work of the gods. The healed man sits down, touches his side, and realizes with surprise that he is still alive. In delight, his family gathers around and sincerely thanks for saving his life. Ilia, overwhelmed with gratitude, does not know how she will ever be able to repay Josh for his kindness. He asks her to focus on resting and healing her own wounds, rather than spending energy worrying about repaying the debt. Ilia tries to stand, but weakness makes her stagger, and the girl with horns rushes to catch her. The horned girl begs the breathless Ilia to rest a little. She is still too weak. Joshua takes matters into his own hands and assures them that he will make sure the healed man does not go anywhere. The group moves away. Ilia is supported by her friends and they return back. Ada, the girl with a horn, throws a suspicious and hostile look at Joshua. He breathes deeply and resolutely and turns to stand before him. Ada claps her hands, bows low, introduces herself, and sincerely thanks him. Joshua waved off her thanks and was about to leave, but Maida stopped him by order of Miss Ilia's. In his thoughts, he notices the leader's orders are absolute. He is stunned that the leader is Ilia. Maida confesses her people are offended and afraid of humans, but Joshua seems completely different. Softness spreads across her face when she notices that he is not like the others. Joshua patiently waits while Meta is about to tell him something else. He clenches her fist. On her face is desperate determination. She suddenly grabs Joshua's hands and imploringly asks him to help. Meta fervently begs him to teach them his magic, insisting that any kind will do. She tells about their trouble, how other monsters and people push them away, even though he saved them. Meta reveals monsters crave their horns. This hints that they are being hunted. In despair, she offers him her whole body, but he quickly tells her to stop. She has gathered her thoughts again and frankly admitted she lacks the education to teach magic herself. But it turns out Meta really knows how to make tools. Joshua's face lit up. He realized that making tools is a production match. He confidently throws a counteroffer. I will craft tools for her village. Meta's face blossomed with a radiant smile of hope. Meta asks if he is really serious. Joshua looked over a pile of roughly joined spears and realized this is the entire village's weaponry for today. He confirms their simple construction: handles, branches, head, stone, or bone. Deposits, thoughtfully weighing their tactical and material limitations. He asks Meta about their long-range skills, and she admits almost no one knows how to use both. Joshua decided to make a weapon that anyone could easily take and use. He throws out a new idea: crossbows, and Meta froze in complete confusion at this unfamiliar term. Announcing that he will make one first, he prepares his crafting magic. Suddenly, a fully finished crossbow appears in his hands, and its unexpected appearance stuns the entire meadow. He calmly explains the magic of creating this weapon and invites her to hold it. Meta examines the unfamiliar object. It looks like a strange hybrid of a bow and an axe. Joshua commanded his slime companion Vizu to set up branches outside to practice aiming. From afar, he loudly says that he will hit the target, and this astonishes his companion. Meta looks skeptical, doubting that he can hit anything from such a distance. He shoots and the projectile hits the target with a loud bang, creating a powerful impact. Meta stammers, not believing in his accuracy, and he cheerfully invites her to try herself. Meta decisively nods and agrees to practice before they go hunting to test it. A group of small children with horns watch her practice. Admiration shines on their faces. Meta hits the target. The force of the shot breaks the branch in half. She happily celebrates that she now aims better, exclaims that the crossbow is an incredible weapon, and Joshua sincerely praises her. Proudly puffing out her chest, Meta reveals that she wears the Sure crest, which allows its owner to wield any weapon. Joshua thoughtfully reflects on crests, suggesting that half-human crests might differ from human ones. Meta clenches her fist and excitedly declares it her true symbol that will make her almighty. Joshua accurately guesses it must be a battle crest. Encouraged by her strength, he suggests using it and going hunting. Another girl suggests hunting wild boars, smaller versions of the armored ones. Josh agrees with the plan and eagerly accepts it, nodding decisively. He said that the crossbow works great at long range, but in close combat they need a plan. He asks Meta about her best weapon, and she admits that she often fights with clubs. Inspired, Joshua decides to make a weapon that better suits her style. He creates a formidable flail, and Meta says it feels like home in her hands. Confident, she says that with this weapon she has nothing to fear. Armed with new gear, the two of them set out into the wild to strike terror. Meta soon notices the prey and, without hesitation, points to a boar in the distance. They watch the boar and see that it is alone and completely absorbed in its food. Joshua notices that its head is an easy target and asks Meta if she can hit it. She skillfully swings the mace, releasing a spiked bullet into the air at lightning speed. The weapon hits the target right in the head, with a dreadful, final muffled blow. Meta is shocked by her own success. She even exclaims, "I did it." She trembles with excitement, amazed at how easily she dealt with the formidable creature. Joshua smiled contentedly. Their new weapon and her skill yielded results. He sincerely congratulates her on a great job and suggests looking for another one. They stand over their first kill. The success of their partnership is already proven. After Meta knocked down 3 boars, she burst out joyfully, but Joshua scolds her, making her fall silent. She instantly apologizes, realizing she was too loud. Attracted by the noise, a huge armored boar emerges from among the trees. Metaphanics blamed herself, as if the smell of her blood had lured that dangerous creature. She shouts to Joshua, "Run, I'll distract them myself," but he doesn't let her go. He throws her a question: does she really think she can overthrow them, and explains they were tamed by the army of the Demon King. He remembers how, as a child, he fought with one together with his childhood friend Logan. He quickly comes up with a plan and decisively declares that he will stop the movement of the simple-minded creatures. He asks Meta to hit her with a mace on his head as soon as he opens the breach. Joshua does not retreat. He is determined not to be weaker than in childhood. When the boar rushes forward, he grits his teeth and gathers his spirit, refusing to believe that he has become weaker. Meta desperately shouts to him to be careful because the beast is already approaching. He calmly tells her not to worry and focuses on preparing to release his absorption magic. Joshua easily dodges Boar's furious attack. His magic absorbs all the momentum. He instantly uses his crafting skill. Crystalline stones appear in his palm. With a shout of "rock," he smashes the projectile against the armored head of the boar. He shouts that he is distracting this creature with stones from Sandfield and orders Meta attack now. Metacologist gave the order, shouted firmly accepted, and rushed forward. Joshua looks with a relieved and admiring smile as their plan unfolds perfectly. Meta's silhouette hovers in the air, her weapon ready to deliver the final blow. The giant armored boar falls to the ground with a last muffled rumble. Meta breathes heavily, looking at the fallen beast, and cannot believe they defeated it. Joshua Neal stands next to the creature and calmly confirms, it is dead. He notes that fortunately, the boar was simpler than those from the Demon King's army. Meta, gripping the weapon in her hand, asks, "Do you see the power of the tools you created?" Meta turned to Joshua, her face lit up with a bright, sincere smile. He enthusiastically says that the weapon he created is truly amazing. Praise suddenly triggered a painful memory in Joshua how he was scolded for the pathetic weapon. He compares it to the present and wonders, when was the last time someone thanked him for his work? Suddenly turning back to reality, embarrassed Joshua admits that he is glad to hear her praise. He felt lighter at heart. He promised to make even more crossbows for the village. Meta shines with excitement and eagerly asks for other tools as well. Ilia thoughtfully adds, a little more weaponry and others in the clan will be able to hunt. Joshua pondered how much he values such reactions to his creations. Looking at the forest, he suddenly realizes this feeling of gratitude makes him truly happy. Later, the villagers collectively surround a huge pile of killed boars, thrilled by this hunt. Meta proudly raises the crossbow and gives Joshua all the credit for their success. Villagers chatter and look with surprise, not believing that one can hunt with such weapons. Filled with gratitude, Ilia approaches Joshua and thinks about how to repay him someday. He generously offers to stay and craft tools in exchange for food and a roof over his head. Meta barely noticeably nods approvingly, while Ilia considers his unexpected offer. A festive feast was announced for that night, and the village filled with joyful exclamations. Next morning, the sun rose and gently flooded the quiet village tents with light. Joshua blinks and wakes up to the chirping of birds. He stretches and mumbles to himself about the wonderful dream he had. He fully opened his eyes and saw Ilia, who was peacefully sleeping next to him in the same bed. His face twisted in complete shock due to the unexpected situation. Thoughts raced through his head. He remembered that she left after showing him the tent. Something was writhing on the other side, and it turned out to be another surprise. Beta was also in bed, clinging to him and stubbornly mumbling in her sleep. Completely confused, Joshua could not understand how this strange situation arose. Ilia wakes up and cheerfully wishes him good morning. He awkwardly asked why they were here. Ilia explained that they were keeping him warm. In a dream, Meta whispers that she will not let him go, following Ilia's orders. Ilia reproaches her for strange speech in the dream, and Meta blinks in confusion. Just waking up, Meta groggily joyfully greets both Joshua and Ilia. Overwhelmed with emotions, Joshua hurriedly thanks them for yesterday and rushes away. Meta asks if he plans to go hunting again, and he confirms his intentions. He decides his first task is to make more weapons for the other demons. A crowd of demons gathered in the village square, chattering in the open air. Before them is a huge, chaotic pile of newly made weapons. The demons froze in amazement at the stunning amount of new weapons. Meta picks up a bow, a memory of her grandfather skillfully wielding its surfaces. From her immense strength, she accidentally breaks the bow in half. Overcome with panic, she keeps apologizing nonstop, and Joshua tries to calm her down. After this incident, Joshua immediately realized ordinary bows are not suitable for mighty demons. He sees Ilia standing in a perfect pose like Nate Archer. Approaching closer, he cautiously asks, "Can you shoot a bow?" She shyly denies, so he makes an arrow for her to try. Ilia carefully examines the arrow, her face focused. She places it on the bowstring. She releases the arrow, and it flies with incredible speed across the clearing. Joshua is stunned by the shooting distance. It's hard to believe she is shooting for the first time. He assumes she might have a natural talent for archery, and this thought pleases her. He instantly made a quiver with arrows for her so she could train. Ilia gratefully accepts the gift, her eyes burning with determination. Then Joshua turned to Meta and advised that she could use some armor. He whispered to her, "Don't move," and began weaving a wind spell. Around Meta, a whirlwind of air swirled while he was taking her measurements. He quickly adds a crafting spell, and a set of lame armor appears. Refined armor appears and fits perfectly to Meta's body. She tests its strength and confidently says that the bison horns won't be able to pierce it. The newly equipped hunting team sets off, promising to return soon. As soon as they left, Joshua turned to Ilia with a new request. He asks if there are any sturdy trees nearby, and she looks at him confused. He receives his question with a thoughtful expression on her face. They dare to enter the forest of giant iron teak trees, which Ilia says are incredibly strong. Joshua admits in a heavy voice that cutting them down is a long task. Ilia suggests looking for something else, but he himself is determined. Before he could even think, Ilia grabs the axe herself, ready to try it. Joshua observes and thinks that she will need quite a lot of time to make even a little progress. With a powerful swing, she lowers the axe. The massive trunk cracks. The whole tree falls with a crash, and she proudly announces her success. Joshua is shocked. Other demons shout joyfully, not believing that she chopped down the tree with a simple axe. Ilia enthusiastically praises the amazing axe that Joshua made for her. He notices Ilias's strength is 10 times greater than the strength of other demons. They stand before a gigantic, relentlessly growing pile of logs in impressive hall. As soon as they started talking about transport, Joshua calmed everyone, saying he would be able to save them. With the order to absorb the whole pile of logs, he suddenly vanishes into thin air. Ilia admires his own incredible strength but modestly rejects the praise. She asks what he will do next, and he decisively says, "I will build a strong, reliable fence." Ilia, with a blush on his cheeks, shyly admits that he actually does not understand what fences are at all. Joshua says anxiously that armored boars often sneak into the village at night. He insists we must attack to protect them from such external enemies. Ilia agrees with his plan and suggests returning to the village. Then he asks her to show him that high open platform near the center. She knows exactly that place and leads him back to the village. They come out onto the raised, empty square, and she nods this is exactly the place. Joshua looks around the empty space and asks if anything was ever built here. Ilia, with a distant look, replies that nothing was built there. She explains that festivals used to be held right here. Taking this as permission, Joshua immediately starts doing something. Suddenly, a huge wooden tower rises on the hill. The villagers below freeze and point up fearfully at the sudden structure. Ilia stunnedly fell silent, standing with his mouth agape, unable to comprehend the scale of this tower. Joshua casually remarked that such a simple structure is no problem for him. From the top, Ilia marvel looks at the breathtaking view of the entire village. Joshua points out that they see Meta and others hunting below. He notices that the hunt seems to be going smoothly. He enthusiastically explains why being able to spot sneaking monsters is a decisive strategic advantage. He plans to post someone on guard to warn the village of danger. Then, inspired, he announces his plan to build similar towers on all four sides. The next step, he will surround the village with a log fence reinforced with stone. Ilia confidently says that together they will build a magnificent wall. The scale of his plans is such that his comrades amusingly become confused. Construction begins immediately. Huge wooden logs thunderously fall into place and form a wall. With a deafening boom, a massive wooden log strikes and lies in place, beginning to erect a new wall. In an instant, a towering wooden fence grows out of nowhere and completely surrounds the village, like the last heavy thought. Joshua proudly announced that the work was finished, and Ilia and another demon behind him trembled with amazement. Stunned by his strength, Ilia asks if he is a god. She modestly admits that she herself would not have managed. Joshua addressed the joyful villagers, "Now you have plenty of meat, so you will sleep peacefully at night." Skewers with fresh meat sizzled attractively over a large bonfire at the heart of this merry feast. Villagers excitedly chatter and loudly thank Lord Joshua for their incredible success in boar hunt. Meta's face shines with pure happiness, admires with delight. The new sturdy fence seems like a dream. Ilia agrees with a quiet, satisfied smile. Her face also radiates the same dreamy feeling of safety. Joshua turns to the group and says that he needs to step away from the celebration for a short time. Meta jokingly tells Ilia that now it is her turn to take care of him. Ilia gladly accepts this arrangement. From afar, Joshua watches as Ilia walks away, and a quiet question about her arises in his mind. The food from Meta compliments is so delicious that people immediately ask, didn't his parents teach him this? He sincerely admits that his mother taught him a lot, and Meta enthusiastically praises the perfectly grilled meat. Joshua modestly thanks his parents and predecessor Ilia for being able to be with them. Meta frowns and quietly confirms that the previous leader was a true great man who fought the orcs. She begins to tell a painful story. 10 years ago, the orcs encroached on their lands. Joshua confessed in shock. He did not even suspect that demons also suffer from human wars. Meta recalls how Ilia, not at all evil, invited other children to play on the southern plains. A look of fear ran across the face of her younger self as she remembers the terrible events that happened there. Horrible silhouettes of giant orcs appear in her memory, emerging before unsuspecting children. Meta explains that the orcs saw precious treasures in the horns of her people and ruthlessly sought to take them. Although their leader agreed to a truce, she reveals that the treacherous orcs betrayed the agreement. The orcs set their eyes on Ilia's extraordinarily long horn and tried to take it by force. Young and brave Ilia tells the other children to run back to the village. There, they will be safe. Sharp explosive sound tore through the air. A brutal attack by orcs began. Another demon child bravely strikes the orc who grabbed Meta, trying to protect their friend. An enraged and much larger orc cruelly shoved the brave child to the ground. The orc looms over the fallen boy, calls him a brat, and prepares to strike again. A brutal blow hits the little demon, and the orcs show their overwhelming, merciless power. Young Ilia, gasping for breath, fiercely looks at the attackers and mutters that they have crossed the line with their cruelty. And the orc grabs Ilia by the horn, shouts that she is finished, and she lets out a groan of pain. With a disgusting crunch, the orc breaks Ilia's horn, and another child watches this true horror. Young Meta screams Ilia's name, her face a mask of pure horror at the witnessed cruelty. Amid the chaos, the heavy spear of an orc pierced the chest of an adult demon. Meta's parents bravely stand between the children and the advancing orcs, ready to protect them. Her mother, with tears in her voice, pleadingly asks the young Meta to flee together with Ilia while they hold the defense. Meta sadly finished her story, explaining that when she looked back, only the severed heads of her parents remained around. Joshua kindly and confidently assures her that it was the fault of the orcs and she is not to blame, inviting them to play. Meta clenches her fist, confirming that the late chief told her the same thing. Then the chief himself rushed at the orcs and returned severely wounded, but with Ilia's horn restored in his hand. She reveals the truth. The chief's last words were an order: Ilia must protect everyone in the village. Meta cheerfully points to the center of the village with a smile and says that the chief's grave is right there. Horror grips her when she sees the watchtower and suddenly, with a shudder, realizes something has been built on it. Trembling with rage, she asks Joshua if he doesn't think he has gone too far by desecrating the sacred place. Joshua explains he built it only because Ilia said supposedly to please the gods and the late chief. He asks what Ilia is doing, and Meta replies that she is probably practicing with the new bow. The angle where Ilia draws the bow shows her new confidence. Now she believes she can protect everyone. Joshua sincerely assures that he meant every word when he said she is talented, and he assumes that she has a coat of arms. He asks about her coat of arms, and Meta says it is called Hania, a name he has never heard before. Meta explains that Hania is not a battle coat of arms, but a gentle coat of arms that has healing powers. Joshua pondered this and Meta agrees, Ilia truly has a good heart. She says that Ilia is so kind that he often exhausts himself for the sake of others. He recalls how she became bait for the sake of the child and now finally understands how deeply she was ready to sacrifice herself. They say that Ilia's actions are noble, as befits their leader. Determination flared in Joshua's eyes, and he said he did not want her to put herself in danger anymore. He vows to do everything possible to help her, and this promise deeply reassures. Meta attracted the attention of the peasants celebrating at the banquet, preparing to make a very important announcement. She loudly, shining with a happy smile, announces that she is marrying Joshua, and he choked on his food from shock. While the crowd cheers joyfully, the stunned Joshua pants and mumbles in disbelief, asking what she is even talking about. He panics, believing that this is a vile trap. They want to condemn him to life in the village, tied down by family. Sinister aura appears behind his back, and he shudders at the terrible thought that he might be forced to marry. Suddenly, Ilia appears trembling with rage and scolding Meta for going too far with her statement. Meta waves her hands vigorously and insists that this is the best way to make sure Joshua never leaves them. She challenges Ilia, asking if she herself does not want Joshua to stay in the village forever. Push her to the limit, Ilia slams the table and declares herself she will be the one to marry him. The two women begin to argue heatedly over who will be his wife, while Joshua insists that he does not want to marry anyone. He hurriedly says that he just wanted to stay a little while, and as the noise grows around him, he nervously sweats. He is overwhelmed by their loud and increasingly fiery quarrels. Joshua looks completely confused and stressed. Sweating profusely, he begins to quietly slip away from the chaotic scene, hoping to go unnoticed. Having successfully escaped the argument, he decides that enough excitement is enough. He goes to sleep. The next morning, Joshua groggily wakes up from sleep to the cheerful chirping of birds outside the window. He froze in shock. On both sides of him, Ilia and Medes were sleeping deeply, clinging tightly to him. Later that day, Ilia's voice rang out and called Joshua from afar across the newly fortified village territory. She approaches him with a smile, asks about his plans for the day, and finds him in the middle of work. Joshua thoughtfully explains that despite his work, a mountain of problems still towers before the village that need to be solved. He turns to Ilia and Meta. He needs iron to make even more tools needed by everyone. Resolutely, he announces that their goal for today is to search for reddish-brown metal stones. Ilia says that from time to time he comes across such small stones, but knows nothing about any large deposits nearby. She recalls a place as Storova Cave, which hides near the foot of the mountain to the southwest. She warns him bats have now settled there, and for over a century no one has dared to approach. Ilia happily offers to take him there herself, her face glowing with impatience at the possible adventure. Meta instantly intervenes, firmly insisting that she will be the one to take him. Joshua understands that Medes' true motive is to protect their leader Ilia from possible danger. He quickly glances between them, preparing to make a choice that will save Ilia. Joshua thinks that if something happened to their leader, everyone in the village would be filled with anxiety. Ilia reluctantly agrees and grateful Meta beams with joy, warmly thanking her for the trust. Joshua promises that they will only quickly inspect the cave and we will return soon. Ilia, with a warm and trusting smile, asks both of them to take care of themselves on the road. They approach the entrance to a store cave, a dark and ominous maw in the face of the rock. Standing before the ominous entrance, Meta nervously swallowed. The darkness of the cave troubled her. Joshua tenses and prepares to intervene to exterminate the bats, but Meta calls him and stops him. He explains that bat bites can be dangerous, so he decides to search the cave first. Using his skill, he instantly creates a torch and hands it to the surprised Meta. He picked up her idea to light the torch and throw it inside to see what might be hiding there. Meta agrees and explains that the light and heat will scare the bats inside and drive them out. With a strong throw, she hurls a burning torch deep into the oppressive darkness of the cave. Behind, a strange splash echoes, and Joshua instantly suggests hiding in the nearby bushes. From their hiding place, they hear the splashing, creaking, and rustling getting closer and closer. Peeking through the leaves, Joshua notices a giant creature emerging. Meta gasps in terrorous item. Betty's face is covered in sweat. She stammers in horror. A huge, grotesque slime flows out of the cave and she screams, "What is that?" Joshua instantly understands. Before him is a dust slime, a dangerous mutant species. He explains its terrible ability to absorb and dissolve everything in its path, even metal and stone. Having proposed a tactical retreat to gather reinforcements, Joshua heard a resolute no from Meta. Not understanding his warning, Meta confidently declares that she will handle the monster herself. She rushed forward, ignoring Joshua's panicked warning that weapons would not help. With a daring cry, Meta thrust her spear into the gelatinous body of the slime. Her weapon thudded against the creature with a squelching sound, but caused no noticeable effect. Joshua urgently shouts, "Meta, release your spear immediately." He refuses to leave the precious weapon he created specifically for her. The dust slime lunged forward with terrifying speed, aiming to engulf the reckless warrior. At that moment, Joshua conjures a shimmering magical shield to intercept the attack. The slime crashed into the barrier, and the impact threw the stunned Meta backward. As he rushes to catch her, Joshua is already preparing another creation spell. He catches Meta and asks if she is okay, and she apologizes for her recklessness. Joshua Glenn's turned back and realized dust slime prefers to attack moving targets. He instantly weighs the options: lay Meta down and charge into battle with the creature himself. Sudden, completely unexpected presence made him gasp in shock and confusion. Ilia appeared among them, calmly standing in the terrible slime. Terrible dust slime hovered over Ilia. It was threatening and incredibly large. Unafraid of what he saw, Ilia tightly grips a large axe. On his face is deadly concentration. With one powerful chop, she completely destroys the monster, scattering its remains. Joshua shuddered, amazed that she was able to instantly defeat the formidable dust slime. He looks admiringly at her incredible strength as she skillfully wields the ordinary axe he made yesterday. Other villagers run up, out of breath from the chase, stunned by Ilia's incredible speed. Joshua began to apologize to Ilia, but she calmly said, "Don't worry." He turns to Meta and gently admits that she tried to protect her. Ilia declares with conviction that protecting everyone is her true purpose in life. Meta clenches her fist, showing how deeply she was moved by the chief's sincere and profound words. He vows to become strong enough to protect Ilia and everyone around. Looking at their bond, Joshua smiles and tells them he relies on their strength. He notices that their deep attachment to each other makes them worry too much. With a kind smile, he thought to himself how restless this duo is. Ilia raises a finger, ready to sternly lecture the obedient Meta. She angrily scolded Meta for not listening to Joshua and putting himself in danger. Metadrop sincerely apologized to Joshua for recklessly underestimating the slime creature. Joshua gently advises the shaky Meta to rest her injured thigh today. Meta reluctantly agrees, and Joshua confirms that the matter is now settled. He decides to collect the remains of the dust slime. They will become crafting material. Joshua explains this slime jelly absorbs blows perfectly and can become armor. Sorting through the remains, he comes across an unexpectedly large crystal. He recognizes it as a magic stone, the substance that monsters hide in their bodies. Ilia enthusiastically explains that weapons and tools made from these stones gained special power. Joshua notices its pale green tint, the very same that has long been considered a sign of wind magic. Danger has retreated, and the group stands before the entrance to the cave, which is now safe. Joshua thinks if a dust slime lived there, no other animal remains inside. Looking inside, they notice the cave was simply teeming with ordinary docile slimes. He imagines that one of these ordinary slimes definitely turned into a dust slime. Large slime curiously hops up to Joshua, who calls it. The slime jumped and ran ahead, as if leading them deeper into the dark cave. Then it happily starts hopping along with the other slimes, creating a strange, joyful spectacle. Joshua sincerely thanked the slime and explained to the others that it was helping them. Confident that a store cave is now safe, the squad boldly steps into the darkness. The walls suddenly lit up with purple light. Ilia says that it is what gave the cave its name. To investigate the strange phenomenon, Joshua casts a spell and conjures an ice axe. He strikes the shimmering wall, chipping off a piece of that unusual ore. Looking closely at the fragment, his eyes widened. He realized it was purple iron. He enthusiastically explains to his puzzled comrades that it is 3 times harder than ordinary iron. Joshua eagerly lectures them about the rarity of this metal. It is desired by nobles and aristocrats for its ability to resist magic. He explained more simply, it is an excellent metal for making better weapons and armor. He crafts pickaxes for everyone. He urges them to start mining the precious ore. The whole group rushed to work, chipping pieces off the valuable cave walls. A horned peasant returned with a full sack, followed by slaves who also carried even more ore. Joshua looks warmly at the embarrassed Ilia, holding a small folded paper in his hand. The group joyfully announced that they were returning to the village after an extremely successful expedition. A huge pile of sparkling purple iron was dumped on the ground to joyful cheers. Joshua beams with the loot. Finally, they won't have to worry about running out of supplies. Peasants excitedly discuss how to make new tools, pickaxes, and even pots. The peasant asks if Joshua also knows how to make weapons, and he confidently replies that he can. Thoughtful expression flashed across Joshua's face as he imagined all those new possibilities. The group chatters happily, their camaraderie palpable as they plan the future. Ilia approaches Joshua, who is kneeling and thoughtfully standing next to an impressive pile of ore. He turns back with a bright smile and calls her by name at the very moment she calls him. He smiled and said she came at just the right moment. He was making something just for her. He hands her a long sword in its sheath and she asks, "Is this for me?" She draws it from the scabbard and the curved blade of a magnificent katana gleams. Joshua explains that he drew inspiration from old village records about demon weapons. A flash of memory shows him studying. He dreams that she will be able to wield it like her ancestors. Ilia recognized the weapon from the drawings but could not understand why he made it for her. He reminds her of the promise to protect everyone after that adventure with the dust slime. Deeply moved, Ilia thanks him with tears in his eyes and promises to keep it. Joshua smiled warmly and gently said to let him know if she needed to do anything else. Nearby, the Meta flinches, gawked at this intimate moment with envious expressions. Meta loudly demands a katana for himself, inspired by Ilia's powerful new weapon. Ilia asks how they can possibly repay Joshua for all his incredible kindness. He modestly waved off her thanks, saying they already give him food and shelter. His face becomes serious, and he vows to make their village safer and more prosperous. Ilia thanks him again and he, nodding resolutely, accepts her gratitude. He decisively says that to achieve this, he will have to solve 3 big problems pressing on the village. The very first problem is security. He wants to rebuild all the houses from sturdy iron teak. The second is to secure a steady supply of food because hunting and gathering are unreliable. He concludes starting agriculture is the best way to feed them. The third and last problem he notices is the overall cleanliness and hygiene of the village. He persistently explains why regular washing is necessary to avoid illness and recover faster. His plans include bringing in water, opening a quarry, and later building latrines and bathhouses. He vows to make their village prosperous for the demons who appreciate his work. A wide view of the newly fortified village reveals before his eyes the fruits of his labor. Suddenly, piercing howls burst from the nearby cliff, a sign of a new threat. A sudden scream frightened the whole group, their peaceful moment instantly shattered. A sudden piercing scream from afar alarmed Joshua and Ilia. Feeling the sound nearby, Joshua instantly turns and gives an order. He decisively orders Meta to set demons on guard and summon the archers. Joshua also asks Ilia to join them, and she gladly agrees. Their footsteps thunder on the ground as they rush to the northern watchtower. Meta runs up, anxiously calls Joshua and Ilia and reports. He tells her to prepare for battle but to hold fire until his signal. She confirms she hears the footsteps of dozens, possibly over 100 people. Ilia anxiously notices that the approaching group is moving too fast. From their position, the group peers toward the edge of the forest. Ilia gasped, her eyes wide open. She finally clearly saw those figures. She excitedly points and shouts to Joshua, "Now I see them." From among the rustling trees below emerge the silhouettes of wolf-like creatures. Meta nervously swallowed, her eyes fixed on the approaching crowd. A large group of tired werewolves trudges forward, some of them in wolf form. Joshua, shocked, exclaims in disbelief, recognizing the exhausted refugees, "We are the wolves." He recalls that we are wolves, human-wolf hybrids hated by other people. Noticing their wounds, Joshua, worried, asked Ilia what could have happened to them. Ilia clenches his fist, grimly guessing that slave hunters attacked them. A small, lonely white wolf stumbles and walks forward, breaking away from the group of refugees. Ilia urgently shouted to Meta, "Tell the archers do not shoot." The little wolf looks up, his face showing that he wants to communicate. Ilia points to the wolf, who seems familiar, and Joshua looks surprised. He clearly understands this is the wolf he saved from slave traders. The werewolves speak, begging only for safe passage and nothing more. Ilia and Joshua assure them, "We are not going to fight you." The werewolf warns that they are still in mortal danger from their attackers. Suddenly, a loud rumble shook the fortress wall, and the wolf flinched. Ilia shouts to everyone, "Immediately to the village, it's safe there." Meta conveys the order and strictly commands the guards to open the northern gate. The exhausted group of werewolves stumbles through the open entrance. From the wall, the defenders watch as refugees pour into their shelter. Joshua gives the last order, "Drive everyone inside, down to the last one." Just then appears an army of armored slave hunters greedy for prey. One of the soldiers froze, confused before the unexpected fortress. The army fell silent from shock, whispering, "How could a fortress appear here?" Joshua decisively declared that he would not allow them to leave with their captive werewolves. He asks Meta if her archers can aim only at the slave hunters. Ilia shouts fire and warns his people aim carefully. From the wall, arrows rain down like hail, hitting two stunned soldiers. Volley after volley throws the enemy ranks into chaos. More and more soldiers fall. The soldier shouts that they are humans and only want half humans. Joshua shouted back that they are also demi-humans and demanded the release of the prisoners. For a moment, a thought flashed through his mind. Technically, he is not a half-human at all. The slave catchers were chattering and stumbling, finally realizing the terrible mistake they had made. Their enraged leader orders a retreat, covering themselves with werewolf shields. Meta clenches her fist in rage and calls the slave catchers cowards. Joshua orders Ilia to surround and intercept the retreating enemy. Ilia, burning with determination, jumps off the wall to intercept them. Fleeing soldiers screamed and raised the alarm due to her sudden, swift approach. A mask of concentration froze on her face as she approached. Ilia becomes a blurred lightning bolt and cuts through the enemy ranks. The soldier recoiled backward, shocked by the power of her strike. The soldier grabbed the girl with cat ears and, squeezing her, demanded to know who Takeris was. Ilia suggests sparing their lives if they release their captives. The soldier shows the girl and asks, "Is this what you want?" While she demanded a hostage, an invisible voice suddenly told her, "Stop." The soldier pressed the blade to the girl's throat, threatening her. The girl froze in horror as the soldier threatened to harm her. Cold, silent, and absolute rage appears on Ilia's face. He releases a powerful slash and hits the soldier holding the girl. Another soldier curses and the freed girl, in shock, stumbles and steps back. Ilia finishes the attack, her long hair whipping around her. A voice shouted her name, said enough, and she froze in the middle of the attack. Joshua firmly warns her, pursuing them further is too dangerous. Ilia turned to him with surprise as shouts of joy rose around. Freed beastfolk celebrate their liberation with cries of joy. Joshua watches with admiration and acknowledges her impressive victory. Meta takes matters into her own hands and orders the wounded to be bandaged. He also commands to gather all the found human equipment together. Joshua bows deeply and solemnly, sincerely thanking from the bottom of his heart. The little white she-wolf introduces herself as Murk. She is the chief hare. Ilia smiles warmly and introduces himself as the elder of this village. Murk looks up at her, stunned by this revelation. Joshua also froze in surprise when Murk both said her name. Ilia crouched down and told Murk that such formalities were unnecessary. Murk raises his eyes to her, accepts her friendly gesture, and repeats her name. Ilia asks if Murk's people came from the northern mountains. Murk tells how they lived peacefully in a cave until people appeared. Joshua immediately associates this with slave hunters they fought. She warns there are probably many more enemies and some of them set fires. Murk said huge tongues of flame shot from their hands. Joshua suddenly realized, before them are fire mages, so stone walls must be built immediately. Suddenly it dawned on him, he and Murk had met before. Joshua confirms that it was she who was captured by the slave hunters. Meta glares accusatorily, asked if you led the slave hunters to them. Ilia decisively and loudly shouted no, defending Joshua from the accusation. Murk explains that she just followed Joshua's scent and found the village that way. Joshua admits he sincerely hoped that Ilia and her people would save them. Werewolves bitterly admitted that they regret they should have asked for help earlier. Ilia and his group faced a direct request for help. She returns to Murk and insists that in trouble they must help each other. Meta hesitates, looks down with an expression of reluctance. She raises her eyes and asks Ilia what she wants from them. Ilia asked for permission to stay and assured that they would fight side by side. He cast a sharp look at Medi, demanding her consent. Joshua adds that slave hunters also hunt demons. Ilia sighs with relief when Meta finally agrees. Meta agrees to the alliance because she believes in a simple rule: the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Meta begins to put things in order, plans to send everyone home, and at the same time prepares for the arrival of new guests. Murk the White Wolf raises her head, also concerned about the welfare of all. The wounded Ilia thanks Murk with a grateful, quiet smile and insists that she also rest a little. Later that night, the campfire crackles and the village freezes in quiet vigilance. Murk lies curled up on the ground, sleeping soundly after the exhausting battle. Joshua does not take his eyes off her and tells Ilia that she is probably tired after all, she is still a child. Ilia asks Joshua to rest, but he insists first he will inspect the captured armor. Suddenly, a horned demon appears and joyfully announces that all the found equipment lies by the gates. With a loud thud, a huge pile of armor and weapons fell to the ground. While examining the pile, Joshua's attention was suddenly drawn to a strange clicking sound. He recognizes the distinctive seal on a piece of armor, the sign of the Cartesian Company. Joshua recalls the notorious reputation of the company: illegal trade and contract killings. A gloomy grimace appeared on Meta's face. He noticed that a fire mage in such a company would be terribly formidable. Joshua agreed he understood. They immediately needed to strengthen the defense against the skilled mage. He resolutely vows to stop the slave hunters so that such tragedies never happen again. The next morning, Joshua wakes up from a pleasant and soft feeling. Half asleep, he discovers that he is stroking something soft and fluffy that has settled on his stomach. Blinking his eyes, he asks himself what this fluffy creature is doing in his bed. He simply froze in shock when he saw a girl with animal-like ears who was soundly sleeping on him. The girl slowly comes to her senses, blinks, and in confusion thinks, "Who is he?" With a light yawn, she gently wishes Joshua good morning among the flowers. Joshua stammers, is completely confused, trying in any way to understand what is happening. He recognizes her voice. It is Murk, who confirms her identity with the help of Pup. Murk confirms that she knows his name. She explains, pointing to the woman who is still sleeping in the bed, what Ilia told her. Maida and Ilia also begin to wake up and warmly greet Joshua in the crowded bed. Later, the group stands in a quiet rural yard, ready to get down to the day's tasks. Joshua recalls the report of fire mages, a vision of fiery destruction blazing in his head. He realizes that their log fence will not withstand powerful fire attacks. He decides to gather fire-resistant building materials and calls Murk. He asks Murk if she knows of any bare or rocky place nearby. Murk wonders if he means some harsh place that reminds her of her old mountain home. Ilia intervenes and suggests a place on the other side of the river, to the east. Joshua looks at the wide and treacherous river and thinks about how they can cross it. Maida excitedly offers to ride on his back, but he nervously refuses. He decides first they will search the river for monsters and only then dare to cross. Murk agrees without hesitation to be their guide on the reconnaissance. Ilia also decides to go and warns about large boars on the way. Meta also joins, says that in an unfamiliar place the more people the better. Suddenly Joshua has an idea, to forge a set of armor for Ilia. They walk along the edge of the formidable wooden wall of their fortress. Ilia and Metachat walk happily, and Joshua walks right behind them. Joshua asks Murk for a favor, and she immediately agrees to help without hesitation. He hands her a piece of clay and asks to find the place where it was buried. Murk goes ahead, confident that something will definitely be found nearby. He points to a spot and Joshua magically creates a shovel to start digging. He quickly comes across a large vein, and Ilia is amazed at how easily they found it. Ilia and Murk wonder what this useful material might be needed for. Joshua, with a gleam in his eyes, talks about his skill, how he shapes the clay, then fires and cools it. With a magical poof, he instantly produces an exquisite ceramic mug. He hands the sturdy and intricate mug to the impressed mercenary. He, inspired by the idea, explains that from this clay one can also make tiles and bricks. Having thanked Ilia, he decided that later they would ask the peasants to dig up more clay. After they completed the first task, he announces, "It is time to cross the river." The group stands before a wide, turbulent river, silently considering how to get across. Ilia enthusiastically notes the impressive width of the river, and Joshua agrees with her assessment. Suddenly, a brilliant idea occurs to him, and he cheerfully exclaims that they will build a bridge. Instantly, a wooden bridge appeared over the water. Ilia and Meta were stunned. Joshua calmly crosses and in a firm voice explains, this way they won't be swept away. He asks Murk with interest how she previously managed to cross the river. Murk explains that a little upstream there is a narrow spot where she jumped from stone to stone. Meta and Ilia breathe in the gentle breeze and enjoy the soothing sound of the river. And on the other side, Murk sniffs the air and senses the smell of mountains to the north. Joshua stands with his back to the river, and his face suddenly becomes serious. Worry about the injury the werewolf endured, hoping he could heal them. Meta points to his immediate danger, and it sharply brings him back to reality. He pulls on the glove and refocuses on the main goal to get the stones. The group boldly steps into the Rocky Mountain terrain to begin the search. They walk over dead land, strewn with stones of all sizes. Murk confirms here it is, the very place they were looking for. They enter a wide, abandoned quarry where heavy boulders roll and debris is scattered around. Joshua immediately noticed traces of an ancient quarry clear-cutting marks were visible on the stones. He asked Murk, did you only see Borev here? She confirmed that it was so. Ilia says that he usually avoids this place, there are big and strong monsters here. Meta says that so far they have only seen small animals, for example, rabbits. Having decided to get to work, Joshua prepares to use his magic to extract stones from the rocks. He explains to the curious Ilia that he uses specialized magic for drilling. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the abandoned quarry. Ilia flinches as the ground beneath their feet begins to tremble fiercely. The entire area shook with incredible force. Ilia and Meta were thrown off balance. They watch in horror as scattered stones start to move and gather together. Joshua froze, gripped by terror, as the stones began to form some kind of shape. Before them, with a rumble, a huge stone figure took shape, and he recognized it as a golem. His face became a mask of shock as a colossal golem loomed over them. Before he could react, Ilia couldn't hold back and rushed forward to attack the creature. Joshua shouts to her, wait, but his desperate warning came too late. Ilia gritted her teeth, acknowledging the incredible resilience of the creature, and rushed into attack. She dealt a powerful slash to its leg. The golem staggered. Her attack shook the creature, but she feels the fight is far from over. Although her strike decapitates the golem, she remains tense and focused. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she looks at the damaged leg of the golem. Stone fragments of its leg scattered then, as if by magic, they flew back and reassembled into a whole leg. Ilia retreats, apologizes for her recklessness, and admits that cutting is pointless. Joshua points to the blackened red stone sparkling in the center of the golem's chest. He calls it the heart. As long as it is not destroyed, the golem will continue to do its work. Golem responded by hurling huge stones at the small group. Joshua shouts for everyone to run while deadly projectiles rain from the sky. He swiftly makes a plan and shouts to Ilia and Medi, destroy the exposed core. Two girls exchanged a determined glance and understood how important their role was. They nodded in unison and drew their weapons, ready to implement the new strategy. Joshua decisively tells Murk, focus only on dodging, don't worry. With a resolute cry, Joshua rushes straight at the huge, raging stone golem. Ilia shouts in panic, warning him that going head first is too dangerous. Turning with a confident smile, he assures Ilia that he is the perfect person for this task. Hulk and the golem swung back their stone fists, about to crush the young man. Unfazed, Joshua breaks through a barrage of powerful blows that thunderously hit the ground around him. He places his hand on the creature's hand, narrows his eyes, and utters one command, absorb. His magic instantly activates and the golem's hand disappears, crumbling into a series of soft puffs. The golem recoiled in shock, its entire body began dissolving under the strange magical attack. Joshua suddenly realized his power works because the golem's body is made of inorganic stone. Stumbling, the confused golem retreated, and its lower half continued to disintegrate into particles of light. It desperately tries to recover, gathering scattered stones to replace its crumbling hand. A determined smile spreads across Joshua's face as he understands he is absorbing the stones faster. The golem suffers a complete defeat, its entire figure rapidly dissolves under the relentless assault. Not missing the opportunity, Joshua loudly shouted to his two comrades, attack now. A horned girl named Meta Lips flew into the air and exclaimed that there is nothing unbreakable about her metal staff. She lowers the weapon with a powerful crash, striking the golem's chest directly with it. Her strike hits. Meta loudly calls to Ilia, finish it with your blow. Ilia lets out a fierce battle cry, channeling all her incredible strength into the sword. With one powerful downward swing of the blade, she strikes the exposed glowing core of the golem. The reddish-black dull stone in the heart of the golem shattered with a sharp, clear slap. Joshua, not hiding his surprise, confidently catches the falling shards of the broken core. Ilia rushes to him, asks if he is injured, but sincerely praises their excellent teamwork. He clarifies their victory was incredible, but he was talking about the core he just caught. Holding the shimmering, broken crystal in his hands, he recognizes in it the heart of a golem. Joshua explains that these doll stones are usually fragile. As soon as the golem is toppled, they crumble. Meta notices with relief that the stone split exactly in half so it can still be used. Ilia's eyes lit up when she realized this means they can create 2 of their own stone puppets. She fears they might attack, but Joshua explains puppets obey the one whose name is engraved on the stone. He adds that even stones that previously belonged to someone can simply be rewritten, their commands change. Ilia can't believe it but is glad they managed to help, and Joshua praises them for their great efforts. Joshua, eager to try his prize, immediately comes up with a new goal. Ilia stands confused, stammering and whispering that he can even create living beings, and for him, this is something special. He gives his new golem the first command to chop a large stone shaped like a cube. The ground trembled under the golem's steps. This frightened Meta, Ilia, and their little companion. They watch in awe as the golem, seemingly without effort, lifts a massive, jagged boulder. Meta clenches her fist and mutters defiantly that she cannot lose and can also lift that much. The golem casually holds the stone in one hand, waiting for the next command. Defeated, Meta admits even she could not lift this with one hand. Joshua glances at his creation with a satisfied, slightly sweaty expression. He concluded that their village had truly gained a reliable new partner. Meanwhile, a trumpeter runs into the village through the gates shouting that there is trouble here. The villagers panic and chatter, pointing at the approaching giant and fearing a hostile attack. Joshua and Ilia froze, watching as their golem takes a heavy step that shakes the ground. Interview. Meta rushed forward, made a calming gesture, and said to everyone, "Relax, calm down." With a face shining with childlike wonder, she announces that this creature is a golem. She proudly exclaims that this huge golem is their new friend, made by Mr. Joshua. Ilia turns to Joshua and asks what he plans to do with all the stones they have collected. Pointing to the golem at work, he explains that he intends to build a wall to protect the village. He resolutely declares that their first priority is to fortify the vulnerable north gate. Meta and Ilia watch, their faces showing pure, amusing surprise at what they see next. They look up in amazement at the majestic, fully constructed stone gate that appeared instantly. Ilia gapes, confirms, and admits himself, this is the biggest thing he has ever created. Joshua suggests, first let's test how strong this new structure is. One of the villagers volunteers and, putting all his strength into it, begins to shake one of the massive doors. Meta is worried, with his strength, the entire gate will definitely collapse under the tension of the rope. The man, exhausted, seems to give up, and Ilia notes how quickly the construction will now proceed. Joshua's face tenses. He insists, the walls must urgently be rebuilt from stone. From the wide view of the village wall, the scale of their bold plan is impressive. The golem tirelessly lifts and lays heavy stone blocks, erecting a new wall. Joshua raises his hand, and his magic continuously produces new building materials. Villagers of all races shoulder to shoulder carry materials and reinforce the rising wall. Meta and other demons watch the coordinated work, their faces shining with bright, encouraging smiles. The entire community has risen to their feet and works as one with incredible speed and precision. Joshua quietly, with pleasant satisfaction, observes the progress, while his companions look tired but content. A gentle, satisfied smile plays on his face as he watches friends and villagers work. He stands atop the growing wall and intently watches their gigantic endeavor advance. Joshua estimated that at this pace, the northern wall will be completed by tomorrow. Excitement flashes in his mind as he realizes the limitless possibilities to make their home better. His stream of thoughts is interrupted when Medak shouts his name and instantly grabs his attention. He asks him if he has seen their comrade Murk. Meta looks around and admits she hasn't seen the werewolf girl since that morning. Joshua recalls how Meta initially didn't like the werewolves at all, and with a smile notes that she changed her mind. He realizes that her anxiety is a sign that she has started to truly care about them. Deciding to act, Joshua announced that he would go look for her himself. Meta tells him to start preparing food. She trusts him to search for their friend. Joshua glances around the village and begins searching for their missing comrade. He quietly makes a sound of recognition upon noticing a familiar person. He finds Ilia, who returns with a gentle smile when he calls her by name. He asks if Murk is with her, but Ilia says she hasn't seen her either. Ilia is noticeably worried because Joshua suggests that Murk might have gone hunting somewhere. They decide that the best plan is to approach the werewolves nearby and ask them for the needed information. Joshua politely approaches one of the werewolves and asks if he is considered a mercenary. The werewolf tells them that he saw her near the southern river with a basket of mushrooms. Joshua decisively declares that he is going to look for her, but Ilia tries to stop him. A large werewolf entered and insistently said that he would no longer bother Joshua and Ilia. He explains that Murk went to gather mushrooms as a thank you for the demons. Ilia quickly and insistently said that there is no need to thank them for their help and kindness. The werewolf fervently begs him, "Do not hesitate, rely more on your people." Ilia clenches his fist, fearing that the werewolves might die during the search. The werewolf looks at her, he feels her deep anxiety for the safety of her people. Joshua accepts their offer and agrees to leave the search for Murk to them. As the werewolves leave, Joshua confirms the place is the Southern River. Noticing that the sun is almost setting, he worries that Murk might have been washed away and calls them to hurry. They both rush through the forest to the river to find their friend. Ilia hopes that Murk is safe and Joshua agrees, saying she is fast enough to escape danger. Ilia walks slowly. A thought suddenly flashes through her mind and she ponders something. Joshua spoke his question, asking in surprise why Murk took such a step. He turned to Ilia and, saying her name, looked for her gaze on the matter. She looks at him with understanding and quietly says she knows exactly how Murk feels. Joshua recalls his painful past. After his hometown burned down, he was cast out as an unwanted child. Memory appears. A young, dirty Joshua is driven out of the town by an angry woman. He remembers how he was once called worthless, but Ilia cannot believe that anyone could have cast him out. Another memory shows Joshua studying hard. This is why he mastered swordsmanship and magic. Ilia connects this with Murk's behavior and hints that the werewolf also desperately seeks their approval. She is worried and says that Murk is afraid she will be kicked out if she does not do enough. Joshua seriously agreed with her words, admitting that some demons really behaved exactly like that. Then he points to the werewolves who are working hard, noting their obvious efforts to contribute. Ilia, filled with new determination, says she wants to talk more with Murk to calm her down. Joshua smiles warmly, agrees, and suggests hurrying back to talk and eat together. Walking through the forest, they began calling Murk's name, looking for her. Approaching the river, they called Murk again, asking her to respond if she was there. Ilia suddenly notices something and urgently points, drawing Joshua's attention to the river. They find Murk sitting alone on a large stone in the middle of the rushing, roaring water. Without hesitating for a second, Joshua and Ilia rush to jump from stone to reach the girl who was stuck. Joshua instantly realizes that the rising water has trapped Murk. She cannot return. Murk raises her head and, surprised, sees Joshua and Ilia jumping across the treacherous stones toward her. On her face anxiety and surprise, she asks why they are here, and at that moment a hum begins. As soon as Joshua utters her name, the ground beneath his feet shakes and he recoils in surprise. When the danger passes, Ilia's face twitches with anger. She firmly says that she will give Murk a good scolding. She angrily snaps at Murk, "Never go alone to dangerous places again." Joshua gently intervenes, places a hand on Murk, and calmly explains that it is not dangerous here. He quietly reminds her, "Don't make them worry, after all, we are all friends from the same village." Humboldt's Murk bowed her head and with a tremble in her voice promised to be careful and not bother them anymore. Murk looks at the floor, still unsure if there is a place for her among them. Ilia tries to calm her, assuring that the werewolves incredibly helped find the clay. Murk waved it off. She says her only merit is simply a good sense of smell. Ilia insists passionately that werewolves have valuable qualities that demons lack. She firmly believes that by working together, they can all live happier, even despite external pressure. Ovkulaka and the half-human with horns agreed. Together their strength could stop that oppression. Joshua looks with a proud smile, mentally convinced that Ilia is right. Murk, seen from behind, quietly agrees with Ilia's assessment. Raising her gaze with new hope, she says that by helping each other, they can live better. Joshua extends his hand, saying he counts on them, and the mercenary decisively agrees. Their bond grew stronger, and Joshua said with a smile that after Meta's dishes, it was time to head home. Murk proudly raises a basket full of magical fleshy mushrooms. The illustration clearly shows metashrooms can be both eaten and used as medicine. Joshua gently strokes her head, praising her for excellent work, and her tail wags joyfully. The day was fading, and they were returning to their spacious traditional countryside home. Inside on the stove, a large cauldron of meat and lemon stew is boiling vigorously. Meta stares with amusing energy, devotes all his attention to cooking. Joshua and Ilia inhale the fragrant steam and cannot contain their admiration. What a pleasant smell. Murk looks at the pot with distrust, not believing that his meta abilities can cook something from such strange ingredients. Joshua giggles, admitting to himself that meta can be a bit clumsy. The wonderfully prepared bowl of soup seems to prove that his worries are unfounded. When the village gathers to eat, Joshua feels relieved there will be enough food and everything will be fine. Ilia carefully tries the soup, and her eyes widen with pleasant surprise. Maida is also delighted. She exclaims that this time she really outdid herself. Murk, the most distrustful of them, scoops a spoonful of stew. Her eyes widen with surprise and admiration. She exclaims that it is incredibly tasty. Meta proudly boasts about her delicious dishes, and Murk confirms she has never tasted anything like this before. Meta nudged Murk to try the mushroom. She gathered the very one already floating in the stew. Murk is delighted again, exclaiming at the juicy softness of the mushroom, and Meta is thrilled. Joshua looked with a warm smile. The mushrooms turned out to be a real success. Quiet dinner was interrupted when Meta heard a sound outside and wondered what it could be. The young man with horns panicked and pointed at the roof, his face a mask of anxiety. A small winged figure landed with a heavy thud and immediately encountered the demand, "Who is there?" She immediately thought that the uninvited guest had come for their meeting, but quickly dismissed the thought. Sitting on the roof, the girl, like an owl, emits a muffled roar. She swiftly swooped down and ended up too close to Meta, causing her to blush awkwardly. Meta asks what this uninvited guest who is rushing down wants. Our girl intently gazes at the fluffy pom-pom on Meta's hair accessory. At that moment, Joshua shouted a warning as something was thrown and knocked the girl off her feet. He shouted through the object and rushed swiftly to intervene in this strange confrontation. The girl's fall was softened by the slimy creature. Visit caught her with a soft plop. Joshua praises Wiz for her excellent work while he and another girl rush to the scene. Ilia notices that the uninvited guest has fainted, and her wings are torn and damaged. Joshua and Murk anxiously look down at the tiny figure, trying to understand who she is. While she lies unconscious, Joshua cannot comprehend, is this mysterious wounded girl a Demi? The whole group stands over the fallen girl. Her identity remains a complete mystery. The girl lies unconscious, embraced by the soft body of a slimy creature Vijik. The group gathers around the unconscious girl, who still lies as if on a soft pillow of slime. She begins to move, groaning, and Joshua gently whispers to her not to speak. He hurriedly asks Ilia to prepare a bed for the wounded girl, and she agrees. Meta gently extends a bowl of soup to the weakened girl and says it will warm her. The girl drinks the soup in one gulp, then falls unconscious again. Joshua reassures the worried Meta, the girl is simply sleeping now. Meta sighed with relief, but the mysterious girl still troubled her. The girl sleeps peacefully, her tiny figure resting comfortably in the soft embrace of slime. Suddenly, Maida had a revelation. The girl turned out to be a Tengu. She, to Joshua's surprise, explains that Tengu live on a small mountain in the west. Joshua comes across that scoundrel. He had never heard of any Demi living so close. Ilia returns and reports that the bed is ready, and Joshua sincerely thanks her. He decides to heal her scratches with healing magic before she is moved. Murk froze, watching every move of Joshua as he cast the healing spell. The Tengu girl is safe, cozily settled in bed and sleeping sweetly under a warm blanket. Joshua asks his slime friend Wiz to watch over the sleeping girl for a while. Other villagers nervously murmured, peeking at the new arrival. Ada claps her hands and happily asks everyone to return to their plates. Meta mentally admires Joshua. He seems incredible to her, and she is confident that he can handle any situation. Murk recalls how her mother enthusiastically said, "It's a real miracle to be able to use not just one but several magics." Joshua modestly explains that he only uses simple, common healing magic. Meta admits that she herself does a little magic and can feel magic in animals. Joshua asks in surprise if she knows any magic, and Murk proudly says that she uses wind magic. Ilia looks puzzled as Joshua gets up with a new idea. While the conversation continues, the shot reveals a view of the village wall. Murk shows her wind magic. A small gust arises between her palms. The gust of wind barely touches the water, only small ripples appear on the surface. She admits that her power is only good for play, not for battle. Suddenly Murk shows that she has a white wolf, a crest that gives ice powers and can heal. Joshua suggests that this crest might endow her with both ice power and the gift of healing. Murk says that her mother could only teach her the magic of victory. Looking surprised, Joshua asks if she wants him to teach her any other spells. He quietly assures the admiring mercenary that she can handle simple magic. In their first lesson, Joshua asks her to imagine water in a bucket slowly turning into ice. She thinks the wand will help. Murk amusingly tries to make one right here. Then she focused her energy and whispered a command to make her target freeze. A whirlwind of magical power burst from the bucket. Its contents instantly turned to ice. Holding the icy bucket, she trembles while her companions praise her great success. Joshua encourages her, "A little more training and your cooling skills will improve." Murk and Ilia, with burning eyes, gladly agree to train their magical skills even more. Murk suggests using her new ice magic to help build new buildings. Next morning, under a calm sky, a new day begins. The sky seems to promise work. Inside, the rescued Tengu girl sleeps peacefully, slowly recovering from what she experienced. Joshua and Murk went outside, leaving the sleeping girl behind. He begins working on a large panel on the ground, trying to decipher that strange mist. Joshua explains that he ordered the demons to dig a large pit for him. They descend the stone-laid stairs, which cover sturdy purple iron doors. With a powerful push, he flung open the doors, and inside, a space was revealed. Murk gasps in awe, suddenly realized that he had created a huge, empty underground room. To practice, Joshua asks her to freeze the floor and walls of the room. He explains that it will be a cold storage for meat and fish, so they do not spoil. Joshua admits that freezing such a large space is really difficult for him. He admits himself, all his skills are almost exclusively about creating magic. Murk looks at him with surprise. His specialization seems strange to her while he encourages her to practice. Suddenly her ear twitched. She felt that something outside disturbed the peace. Joshua said he was going to work on the walls and was already preparing to leave. Murk stops him and informs that the Tengu girl outside is causing a commotion. From afar, they see a scene unfolding in a rural courtyard. Noticing the girl, Joshua and Mercury rush to the source of trouble. They see Ilia and Meta gently trying to calm the agitated Tengu girl. Ilia begs the girl to rest, but she stubbornly insists she feels fine. The Tengu girl thanks them for the help, but suddenly falls silent. She cannot explain anything. Ilia notes that with her tattered wings, she will simply fall again. Her wings dropped all the way to her feet, and Joshua approached to introduce himself and acquaint the others. The group waits patiently, and the Tengu girl remains silent, bowing her head. He directly asked if there is any rule forbidding her from communicating with them. The winged girl Shaylee introduces herself. I am Pila, a member of Tengu. Ilia greets warmly as the village head, while Murk is peeking meanwhile. Joshua addressed Asua, tensely trying to find out what happened to her wings. He sadly tells the harsh truth: she cannot fly with them. With a serious expression, Joshua focusedly begins to formulate a solution to her problem. He declares with passionate determination that he will make a device to help her. His sudden, confident statement left all three girls stunned and speechless. Ilia asks if he can make wings, but immediately says he cannot. Instead, he explains his plan, to use magical stones to handle this task. Oof, he instantly creates an exquisite wand to demonstrate his power. Then he turned to Asuha and asked if she knows how to use any magic at all. Joshua asks her to imagine that she is creating wind, and Murk shows and hints how to do it. Deeply concentrating, Asuha whispers a wind spell. A light gust of wind swirled around her, as if proving that she has a talent for it. He extends the newly created wand and with a smile says that with it she will be able to fly. Murk and Suha carefully examine the glowing wand and interestedly notice its unusual green stone. Joshua enthusiastically explains that the stone enhances wind magic, recalling their battle with the dust slime. He simplifies the idea and assures that it will allow her to achieve confident victories. When asked if she can fly with it, Suha tightly grips the wand and decides to try. She directs the wand, invokes a powerful wind spell, and the magic gathers around her. Suddenly, a huge gust of wind burst out and deafeningly struck her companions with its unexpected force. The powerful wind lifts Suha off the ground and throws her into the air, making her spin. Her friends raise their eyes, their faces wide open with surprise as she hovers above them. Joshua exclaims with pure joy she is flying, and excitedly watches her take off. Ilia is delighted by how useful this stone is, while Sukha gracefully circles in the sky. He agrees and gives credit to the magic stone for its power. Joshua also enthusiastically praises Asui's incredible skill in wind magic. After a few minutes, she descends and softly lands right in front of the group. Stunned, she tries to return that incredible thing, but he insists that she keep it. He explains that it perfectly compensates for her wings and will suit her. Noticing her hesitation, he begins to offer another way of payment. He hints that perhaps her people at Tengu would agree to help. Joshua explains that in these parts, hostile people attack the demis. He suggests that a flying Tengu could gather invaluable information for them. Sugar suddenly realizes this is a service that people can provide. Ilia wisely advises she should first discuss this proposal with her tribe. Suha agrees and sincerely promises that her people will do everything they can to help them. Ilia, with a serious expression on his face, added a solemn request: be careful. She resolutely says, beware of bad people, and Sugan quietly nods she understood everything. Suha swears to return and repay them, and they say they are always happy to see her. They watch as she flies off into the distance, heading home. Murk thoughtfully says that Joshua and Ilia are kind, perhaps even too much. Mido appears and agrees with Murk. Yes, that is exactly the character of their leader. He adds that it is their kindness that she likes most about them. Suddenly, Meta reminds Ilia of the favor she wanted to ask Joshua. Cheeks burning, Ilia shyly asks if he could make her a flute. He smiled and cheerfully agreed, asking her to describe the instrument she remembers. In a moment, he creates exactly the flute she described, and everyone froze in amazement. Filled with delight, Ilia sincerely thanks him and promises to practice playing it. Meta fervently asks her to play it for them immediately. Ilia raises the new flute to his lips, preparing to play a melody. Joshua smiles, awaiting the beautiful sound that will reflect her warm nature. Instead, a deafening, piercing screech cut through the air, shocking everyone. He shouts her name in panic, covering his ears from the deafening sound. His plea for her to stop is barely audible through the terrible noise. The group was left in tatters and shock, and Meadow wondered if it was an enemy. Ilia resolutely vows to diligently practice the flute, while Murk begs her not to do it. A strategic thought flashed through Joshua: maybe this noise will scare the enemies. Ilia, not giving up, persistently tries to convince the reluctant Meta to practice with her. Joshua glanced at the sky and noticed how far Suhaha had already flown. He remembers her smile full of hope and feels confident that she will get home safely. The grim narrative reveals that she returned the very next day. Joshua's face glows with pride as he surveys their recent progress. He gazes enchanted at their newly fortified walls, all thanks to his golems and slimes. A sudden voice called Joshua, and he turned with a frightened expression. Murk runs in, feverishly reporting a column of smoke rising from the northern mountains. In the distance, a dark column of smoke ominously spirals into the sky. Standing on the village wall, Murk points. The smoke is from the Tengu settlement. Fear freezes on her face. She wonders if they were attacked just like her people. Suddenly, someone's hand grips Murk's shoulder, pulling her from anxious thoughts. Ilio appears, her face hardens, and she resolutely says she will prepare to receive refugees. Joshua entrusts her with the task and nods, acknowledging that she is ready. Suddenly, his face filled with shock, he noticed that something was approaching. Avirius Sukka confidently flies on, carrying 2 wounded Tengu companions. Below her, a large panicked crowd of her people rushes away in complete chaos. The refugees, children, and elderly people look battered and frightened. Joshua realized with horror that they were attacked by slave catchers. Desperate Tengu refugees begin arriving at the village, seeking refuge. Hurrying to meet them, Joshua assures the tired Saw that they will shelter everyone. Suya burst into tears and said that their village was burned to the ground. Other Tengu see Joshua and begin to whimper in fear of the human. One of the refugees let out a cry of genuine, unfeigned terror. He shouts that there is a human here, and this human is going to kill everyone. Panic erupts, frightened Tengu shout for everyone to run away. Ilia instantly threw himself in front of Joshua and shouted that he would not harm them. The refugee asks distrustfully, why did Suha lead them to where there are people? When panic rises, Asuha desperately begs everyone to stop. Crying, she insists that Joshua and Ilia are completely different, and it is they who will save her life. Tengu froze silently when they realized that they were truly sincerely accepted. Ilia gently comforts one of the refugees, sincerely apologizing for their hardships. With deep compassion in her eyes, she invites them inside to eat and rest. Murk without hesitation takes on treating the wounded, and Ilia offers them a corner where they can spend the night. Inside, the villagers begin to care for the tired and wounded Tengu. A man from Tingo named Grimly reports that only a third of their people managed to escape. He says that the rest were either captured by attackers or burned alive. Suha clenches her fist. It means that behind everything stands a giant that spits flames. Joshua cannot get rid of the thought, is this the same fire mage who attacked the village of Murka? Suha recalls the incredible power of the Mies. They instantly turned their forest to ashes. Joshua realized that such a thin flame is the work of a high-level mage. He asked if the attacker used any other magic, but Suha only confirmed it was only fire. She vividly describes his purple attire and how he arrogantly declared that he is the child of the fire god. Joshua repeats the name under his breath, and realization lit up his face. The description was attributed to an excellent student from the Logs family. Joshua asks if there is any more information, and Asuha eagerly recounts the events of yesterday. She long gazed at the western sky, searching for her missing friends. In a forest clearing, she suddenly came across what seemed like a human town. She quietly sneaked up to the settlement to get a better look at this strange place. She was gripped by horror. She saw her friends, demons and werewolves, forced to work. Joshua and Ilia are both shocked to learn that other Demi were enslaved nearby. Suha explains that is why she asked her father to form an alliance with them. Her father asked for time to think, a delay that proved fatal the same day. She, sobbing, confesses her father was killed by those very people. Joshua listens to the tragic story, his face showing sadness and understanding. He concludes this town is a hidden base for illegal slave hunters. The group realizes that their native village is now under deadly threat from slave traders. With grim awareness, they must act swiftly to avoid heavy losses. Joshua calls Ilia and Asuha, gathering his core allies. He also summons Meta, Murk, and Wiz for an important conversation. With a serious expression, he decisively said that they all need to talk. Village leaders gather together to hold a military council. Joshua paints a grim picture: slave hunters might attack them. He asks their opinion what to do if the slave traders do come. Ilia's voice cut through the silence, simple, resolute: they will fight them. Peasants declared firmly, they will not give anyone away. Ilia swears that he will never surrender, even if he has to fight other people. Her determination is clear: it does not matter what race their enemies are. Seeing how united they are, Joshua said he has a proposal. Ilia listens, worry on her face. She is calculating the odds against them. Joshua proposes a bold strategy: they must make the first move. Meta and Ilia could not believe their eyes. His aggressive plan stunned them both. But Meta immediately ignited with energy and is eager to strike back at their enemies. Joshua restrains her zeal, warning that a direct assault would be too dangerous. He clearly says that their main goal is to save the captured Demi at the base. Murk correctly guesses that they will lure the enemy outside and then break inside. Joshua decisively confirms the plan: lure them outside, knock them down, and then attack the base. He returns to his slime companion Wiz and begins the necessary preparations. He orders Wiz and the golems to dig up a large pile of coal in the mines. The golems immediately stomp their feet and went to carry out their new task without asking a word. Joshua explains coal is a combustible stone that they will use for the trap. Then he turns his gaze to Murk and entrusts her with a decisive role. Murk nods briskly, her eyes burning. She says everyone wants to help, and she will do anything. Joshua thanked her and asked her to lure the slave hunters out of their base. He decisively orders her to lead them to the northern wall, keeping a safe distance. Then he asks Asaha, lead Murk and the others to the enemy base. He says that although the job is dangerous, it is necessary to set their trap. Sakura nods decisively and tells him, leave everything to us. Murk also nods in agreement, and the same determination and readiness can be read on her face. Then Joshua turned to Asuha with one last request. He tells her that when she returns, another important task will be waiting for her. He asked her to blow from the top of the wall and promised to tell all the details later. Asuha and the werewolves set off, and Joshua waves them goodbye, watching them go away. Everyone turned their eyes to Joshua and waited for his next order. He rhetorically asks, is it now he who gives the orders? He confirms this, then shocks everyone by announcing that he will be the bait. Ilia and Meta were completely stunned by his unexpected decision. Ilia instantly protests and firmly insists she should be the bait. Joshua resolutely rejected her, explaining that he had a premonition and had to be frank. He orders Ilia to stand ready by the gates and charge on his signal. She reluctantly agrees, and he thanks her with a reassuring smile. Then he entrusts Meta with a key task to command the defenders. Meta nervously nods and vows to remember the order of instructions. Joshua shouted that the weapons on the tower top must be prepared, and the girls were confused. He simply and confidently explains, arms is the word for heavy weapons used in war. To demonstrate, he uses his magic and instantly creates a huge ballista. On the village ramparts, Joshua explains his newly constructed ballista, a giant crossbow. Meta eagerly assumes she just needs to launch it, but he categorically denies this. With a serious expression, he explains, this is a weapon of last resort. Stone golem arrives, its heavy steps shaking the ground, carrying coal. Joshua cheerfully thanks his familiar Wiz for the quick and timely delivery. He explains their plan in detail, to fill the bags with crushed coal and boar fat so that they ignite easily. And he orders Meta to attack that area with flaming arrows and crossbows. Joshua loudly calls his comrades, prepare for battle while the scouts have not returned. The sky darkened ominously, setting a gloomy mood before the upcoming conflict. In the clearing, the young demon together with Joshua confirms that the hay is laid exactly as needed. His face is tense and focused. He closely watches the final preparations. Then he notices a group of scouts returning on a distant hill. Murk and the rest. The winged tengu Sukka lands next to a large white wolf and calls his name. Sitting down, Joshua asks the smaller wolf if everyone in her pack is safe. He immediately gives the order, their forces must surround the approaching enemy. The white wolf nodded, understanding his task to catch everyone who tries to escape. Suya anxiously asks if he really intends to face the enemy army alone. He confidently assures her and the wolf that everything will be fine with him. Standing nearby, Ilia grips her sword, her face full of worry. Joshua steps out alone, a powerful aura crackles around him and he prepares for battle. He feels a human duty upon himself, he must put an end to this. The slave hunters moved forward. They were sure that the werewolves they were chasing had taken this very path. Two soldiers look puzzled. One of them holds a burning torch. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a giant wall emerges, blocking their way and shocking everyone. The commander grumbled angrily that they probably went the wrong way, scolding his subordinate. He is still yelling at the frightened soldier for managing to lose them. The refined young man, Sir Burnish, steps forward and waves his hand disdainfully. With a smug smile, he says he knew all along this was the very place. The soldier notices a werewolf on the wall. It responds to him with a defiant bark. From the parapet, Joshua recognizes the approaching army slave catchers. His face tenses as he says he is going to talk to them. Their leader Burnish looks up, doubting Joshua's strange desire to negotiate. Joshua shouts down, demanding to know who they are and what they are doing. Burnish recognizes the name Joshua, an expression flashing on his face as if he just realized. Flash of memory surfaces. He understands he has seen Joshua before and knows him as Logan's apprentice. He asks with malice, "Joshua, do you remember me? I am the one who sharpened your sword." Joshua firmly says he remembers nothing, but in his thoughts it is clear he definitely knows who is polishing to a shine. Burnish laughs, then condescendingly tells Joshua, "Stop playing around and go to school." Offended, but Joshua knows, magical engineers are barred from any university doors. Burnish asks for Joshua's consent while his men sneak through the neighboring forest. Surrounded by an aura of sparks, he boasts that he is an excellent student. Joshua despises him in his thoughts, thinking that he and Logan are two peas in a pod. He says that hunting demons is forbidden, and the Burnish group just laughs. Burnish's companion sneers mockingly, beginning to clarify her twisted motives. Meta fiercely declares that she hunts not for money, but simply because she finds it fun. Joshua's expression darkened. He thought that motivation was even worse. Burnish summons flames and boasts that you won't find such a thrill at university. A grim image flashed the charred remains of werewolves they hunted. Suha looks in horror as a similar vision of fallen flying demons appears. With a sadistic smile, Burnish enjoys the thrilling memory of their screams. He sneers contemptuously, looking at the loser. Josh will never feel such excitement. His group laughs and he happily says he is glad not to be born trash like him. Joshua quietly whispered that he would rather die than become like his opponent. The enemy group whispers confusedly, but Joshua knows he must provoke him. Seething with rage, Burnish lunges forward and swears to turn Joshua to ashes, because trash must be burned. With a smirk, Joshua thinks how easily he can manipulate him by calling him trash. Joshua grabs Burnish's wrist, who tells him, "Be grateful for this honor." While Burnish brazenly boasts, Joshua clenches his fist. His plan is ready. He releases his divine flame, a huge vortex of the highest level fire magic. Joshua looks at the powerful spell, and a grim thought appears in his mind. He cannot comprehend how many innocent demi were killed by this very magic. Confused, Burnish watches as Joshua strains and prepares to unleash his counterattack. With a determined look, Joshua declares, his time of reckoning has come, all thanks to his magical repository. He releases two huge clouds of cold dust into the blazing, fiercely burning hell. Eyes Burnish sigh widen in shock as fine powder trembles and sprinkles down to his flame. Cold dust flared with a sharp, wild whistle and turned into a huge fiery explosion. Meta crikes in panic, begging for the mad fire to stop immediately. Burning shells shower enemies who scream in pain and surprise. The flame caught the soldier and he desperately beats with his hands in panic, trying to extinguish the fire. Joshua calmly notes that boar fat will make the fire very hard to extinguish. Suha clenches his fist. Nearby, another soldier shouts he does not want to die like this. A sudden and inevitable fire attack throws the slave traders into complete chaos. Tengu warriors rushed into battle, soaring above the frightened enemy soldiers below. Slave traders, gripped by horror as they realized they were attacked from all sides, shouted, "Run." Meta's angry voice sounded. She ordered her forces to open fire. Mechanism clicked. Burning shells fired from the village walls. Shells fly like hail, and the slave traders notice the gates opening right before them. They madly rushed to the gates, trampling each other in despair. The soldier screamed in horror as the barrage engulfed him. He realized it was the end for them. The panicked army shouts orders to run into the forest to escape the fire. While they flee, a new threat emerges from the shadows of the trees. A pack of roaring werewolves emerges from the forest and blocks their escape route. Ilia appears amid the chaos. Her calm appearance sharply stands out against the backdrop of the battle. A slave woman noticed her and froze for a moment. A woman in the middle of the fight. Her face froze in icy rage as she tightly grips the sword hilt. She makes a powerful swing of the blade. With one move, she knocks down several slave traders. Meta encourages the other demis, shouting for them to open the gates and charge the attack. The half-humans burst forward and swept away the confused slave traders. The motley group of Joshua's allies watch as the enemy suffers a devastating defeat and flees in panic. The rest of the slave traders, gripped by horror, decide that the forest is too dangerous and rush to the river. They flee as a confused, disorderly crowd, but despite being completely broken, they are ready to fight. Two young horned demi, gasping from exertion, shout, "We have defeated the humans." Meta, filled with rage, lunges forward, shouting to prevent them from escaping. Joshua quickly stops her and explains that he himself wants to interrogate the prisoners instead. Meta nods understood. The new task is to capture them alive. She awkwardly corrects herself and asks if she just needs to catch them, not kill them. A large white wolf steps forward and says he will handle the capture himself to avoid accidents. The werewolves easily outrun her, and Meta complains that she could have caught up with them too. Joshua watches the chase, a thoughtful expression on his face as Sucker approaches him. He looks at him with a sad gaze and sincerely thanks him. In the forest clearing, a suckhack firmly tells Joshua that the defeated man attacked her village. One hand, covered in dirt and pressed to the ground, is proof of their hard-won victory. Their success ignited the hearts of the Demi-Humans, and they shouted that they wanted to charge into the attack. Amid the excited chatter, Ilia approaches Joshua and asks what decision he will make. He sees this golden opportunity but wisely warns, "Do not tempt fate too much." The great werewolf leader nodded and agreed. Their tactics always prioritized the safety of allies above all. Suddenly, Joshua held his breath, realized that they really did not need to capture the enemy base. Clenching his fist, he decisively says, their true goal is simply to free the captive demis. Following this new strategy, the scene slowly shifts under a gloomy sky. A large group of defeated human soldiers now kneel in submission on the ground. Meta is proud of her success, and Joshua sincerely thanks Murk for her help in the capture. With his magic, Joshua instantly creates an exquisite mask for the next stage of his plan. He gathers his key comrades Mektu, a suckhack, Ilia, and Murk to briefly lay everything out for them. Putting on a mask, he confidently tells everyone, "Just follow me." He steps before the soldiers on his knees, ready to begin his sophisticated deception. Joshua immediately demands to know how many people are at their base. The soldier flinches as Ilia moves threateningly behind him. Her patience is at its limit. The cold, sharp gleam of her blade appears right next to the frightened soldier's face. Ilia half draws her sword and grumbles that the interrogation is taking too long. With a threatening look, she gives the soldier an ultimatum: 10 seconds to answer her question. The soldier, overwhelmed by sheer terror, helps and immediately agrees to talk. He shouts that there are about 50 soldiers at the base right now. His comrades despairingly confirm his words and plead for their lives to be spared. Having obtained the necessary information, a suckar calls the werewolves and Tengu it's time for the next move. She decisively commands, "Follow the prisoners and hold course north to the base." A formidable army of Demiludes marches forward, leading their human prisoners behind them. Having surveyed his troops, Joshua notices, now the numbers are unquestionably on their side. Ilia asks if he has a plan and hears a brief, confident yes. And he boldly said, "I will free everyone and no one will die." Before the main forces move out, Joshua calls the surprised Meta. Comrade explains that half of the demons must stay to protect the village. Joshua gently encourages the disappointed Meta and assures her that her role as guardian is extremely important. Moved by his trust, Meta takes up the task and sincerely wishes him luck. Joshua entrusts Mady with an important role and says to her, "I am counting on you." With a decisive wave of his hand, Joshua orders the rest of his forces to follow him. A motley army of half-humans and prisoners makes its way through the dense, hilly forest. Suddenly, someone's voice called him by name, and Joshua turned around with a clear look of surprise on his face. The little white wolf Murk ran up and happily reported that they were already approaching the human base. Through the clearing, they noticed a formidable fortress, a sign that they had finally reached their goal. Joshua slowed his people down and decisively said, "First, I will explain the plan to everyone." Half-humans and their captives gathered to hear his strategy. The blonde warrior Ilia looked at Joshua and asked what he had planned for their attack. With a light, confident smile, Joshua revealed his simple plan around the fortress. Ilia looked skeptical and asked, would a passive siege work without a fight? She insisted that they needed to defeat 50 soldiers inside to free their friends. Joshua sharply pointed out a critical flaw: the enemy could use the captives as hostages. He warned that cornering the enemy with no way to retreat would force them into desperate actions. Knowing the risk, Ilia agreed to trust his decision and give him the strategy development. She firmly says, first of all, to avoid bloodshed, and fully agrees with his cautious approach. Under the starry sky, Joshua said that they are in the perfect position for negotiations. He shouts to Wiz, a young woman walking alongside a small slime. Using his magic, Joshua materializes a huge pile of torches for their troops. He orders the cute, writhing slimes to distribute 2 torches to each warrior. The werewolf and the horned demon cheerfully chattered, receiving their torches from the slimes. A diverse army of half-humans quietly whispers as they are equipped for the bluff. The magical spark, Joshua commands to light the torches and pass the flame. The torch flared with a powerful rustle, illuminating the dark forest. He sharply orders the werewolves to line up around the perimeter from east to north. The Tengu were ordered to fly into the sky and patrol over the fortress. He orders the demons to approach from the south and bring prisoners with them. Joshua chooses Ilia, Murk, and Sakhak. They set out with him, taking one of the prisoners. He puts on an exquisite mask, hiding his identity before the upcoming negotiations. On the sides, 2 huge, loudly rumbling golems. The massive Joshua announced that it was time to negotiate. The formidable fortress silently towers under the night sky, waiting for their arrival. On the wall, a guard excitedly shouts that their commander, Sir Burnish, has returned. His comrade looked closer and screamed in panic, those figures are not their commander. On the fortress rampart, the guard looks in horror at the many torches surrounding them. Next to the main group stands Ilia calmly. Her face seems refreshed from the tense atmosphere. Panic grips the guards and one of them lets out a piercing scream about an enemy attack. Amid the chaos, the men shout in panic, ordering someone to run and inform their leader Sir Kabus. Below, Joshua's small company watches as true chaos erupts, and Joshua himself clearly does not hide his satisfaction. He notices how stunned and confused the enemies are, while Ilia remains calm and the prisoner soldier is exhausted. The winged girl Sua stares into the void, completely stunned and exhausted from stressful events. On the wall, a stout commander named Sir Kobe, who shouts loudly, demanding to be told whose army this is. Stepping forward, the massive Joshua began his statement and called himself Demi. He pompously declares that they are the account of the newly formed Fendel Alliance. Ilia and Asuya are clearly stunned, they have never heard this name before. Joshua quietly confesses to his friends that he just made up this name on the spot. He shouted loudly and decisively that the alliance was created by the Demi from Findla to fight slave hunters. Sir Kobe waved off this claim as nonsense and threatened to attack the fortress below. Joshua sharply replies, does Kobe even understand how many different tribes his troops have attacked? Some Suha dramatically says that the sea of fire around them is the flame of their anger. A subordinate whispered to the shocked Kobe that their other commander, Burnish, also burned in the flames. A captured soldier next to Joshua loudly calls for his former commander, ready to confirm this story. He tearfully recounted that Sir Bjornish and his soldiers died in less than 10 minutes. Sir Kobe looks at his fortress, gasping from fear and disbelief. From the air, Wing Ting saw that the fortress was now completely surrounded by Demi. Joshua issues the final ultimatum and gives them a choice, release everyone or die. A harsh choice leaves her Kobe completely stunned and speechless. Suha hints that their golems can break down the fortress gates. The Kobes beg them to wait. Joshua clearly explains, their demands are not about money only, that the slave traders leave and release their captives. One advisor tells Kobe that the wisest thing is to free the slaves and flee. Clenching his teeth, Kobe agrees to their demands but stops and asks if they will keep their word. Joshua grabbed Ilia and holds her as a hostage. Her life is at risk if Kobe tries any trick. A direct and harsh threat struck the Sirikobes with a wave of pure terror. Pressed and defeated, he shouted that he would fulfill all their demands. Joshua gives the final order, open the gates and free every slave. When the massive gates opened, the crowd of freed Demi poured outside, shouting with joy. Then he decisively orders 3 comrades to enter the fortress and make sure no one was left behind. Near the gate, he watches with surprise as the golem commands the crowd of half-humans. Mission accomplished. Ilia returns and reports to Joshua's group. She froze before the open gates of the fortress, nearby a small slime and a wolf. Her face is gloomy as she says that all living prisoners were freed, although some have already died. Noticing that dawn is near, Joshua decides, we have done enough, it's time to retreat. As they withdraw, he notices the fortress commander Kobe trying to sneak away quietly. Joshua met him face to face, and the frightened commander insists that he definitely freed everyone. And then he swears he and his men will leave and never return. With his allies behind him, Joshua addresses the defeated people and firmly says, Demi are not fools. He slammed his hand and said that for now they will take their word for it. The commander loudly gives the order, all his soldiers retreat from this area. From a hideout in the forest, the victorious group of half-humans watches as the enemies flee. Returning back, Joshua anxiously asks Murk if someone is watching them, and Murk calmly replies that there is no one, all is clear. One of his comrades asks about the Findle Alliance, which he mentioned earlier. Joshua, smiling, explains that he just made it up to sound more formidable. While she listens, a shadow of doubt crosses Ilia's face. She is troubled by the thought that now, with their common enemy gone, their hard-won alliance might fall apart. Joshua was surprised to hear that Ilia had expressed this concern. Suha quickly dismisses this thought and says that she will always be by their side. She insists they want to stay if Joshua and the others do not mind. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashes in Joshua's mind. He suggests expanding the Fendel alliance. Ilia's face brightens with new hope, and she cheerfully agrees to continue working together. Joshua thoughtfully weighs what the next logical step should be for their new organization. He suggests that the alliance needs a representative and freezes when he realizes what that means. Immediately, Ilia, Asuhak, and Murk turned around and looked at him. Each one's eyes were full of expectation. Ilia fervently claims that the success of the plan is due to his superior knowledge. Suya sincerely says that he believes he should lead them. Murk chimes in, reminded him that he was the first to propose the alliance. Joshua is tormented by doubts. He fears that not everyone will accept him as a person. He silently weighs all the pros and cons, seeing that being an outsider might bring advantages. Before he could decide, Ilia, full of zeal, declared him the leader and announced the conditions. The group erupts with approving shouts of agreement, and a slightly stunned Joshua receives congratulations from Murk. They return to their village, now protected by a formidable stone wall and a heavy gate. A great joyful celebration is raging around the recently freed Demis. Meta greets Joshua, looking admiringly at the huge number of people they managed to save. Joshua suddenly notices smoke rising and anxiously asks where it is coming from. Meta proudly says she has prepared a huge feast for everyone and receives his praise for it. He admits that he did not even guess this, stunned by her foresight. Smiling, Meta declared, "Of course, I will be so attentive. I am his wife after all." Joshua is completely stunned. He is speechless from her shocking and at the same time mundane statement. She calmly explains, honesty is a demonic virtue, and she intended to tell him this. Then Meta grabs the amplifier and loudly announces her new status to the whole crowd. Ilia confronts Meta. I see her face. She looks at her defiantly. Other Demis trembled in shock at Meta's bold public move. Ilia admits that Meta's cunning statement turned out to be smarter than she expected. Meta sharply replies that she is simply stating facts and Joshua will be her husband. Unwilling to give in, Ilia grabbed Joshua's hand with a determined look. She says that since today is such a memorable day, they need to get married, and begs him to take her as his wife. Two women fiercely argue, and the confused Joshua cannot intervene. He insists that for now, he is not going to marry anyone. Murk bursts into the chaos, rubbing against his leg and jokingly claiming to be his wife too. Meta and Ilia decided to settle their dispute simply with a boar hunting competition. Suha tries to be the voice of reason and suggests everyone eat the prepared food. Ilia noticed that Joshua must be tired too. Then she accuses Asuha of trying to get close to him by pretending to be reasonable. Meta and Ilia do not back down. Each insists that he is the best match for Joshua. Embarrassed, Asuha clung to Joshua's hand and declared that she is the best match for him. Little demons join them. They playfully push Joshua and thank him for the food. A new Fendel alliance appears on the festive stage: demons, werewolves, and Tengu. Stunned by his size, Joshua prays that his new alliance will not fall apart on the very first day. Later, during the noisy banquet, the crowd of Demis joyfully savors the dishes. Ilia notices that Joshua suddenly disappeared and learns that he headed south of the village. Joshua stands alone, gazing at the settlement with a thoughtful expression on his face. When the Demis find him, he feverishly explains that they urgently need more housing. With a joyful smile, he tells them that he needs to build even more as soon as possible. Suddenly, the perfect street appears before his eyes: 200 newly built houses. He notes that there is still a free plot in the south for future expansion. Ilia arrives, simply stunned. He built so much in just a few hours. She hands him a drink, sincerely praises him for the excellent work, and beams with a bright smile. He takes the drink and thanks her sincerely for her kindness. Joshua watches, a drop of sweat glistening on his face as he prepares to speak. He sincerely apologized for making everyone help with the construction because he thought they were tired. Ilia gently calms him, explaining that everyone is catching up on their own to keep up with him. He thought about the fact that in the order he was never praised and never called to cooperate. With deep satisfaction, he suddenly hugs Ilia tightly. She cheerfully puffs out her cheeks but reminds him that they still cannot relax. His thought instantly returns to plans. He suggests that they start farming. Ilia jumped with surprise when he learned that among the freed prisoners there were those who knew how to work in the field. Joshua was so happy about this incredible news that he pressed Ilia tightly to himself. He already sees their next problem: how to get seeds and livestock, which are so hard to find. He turns over options in his head, either snoop around the fortress or simply buy them in the city. Joshua asks Ilia if she has ever seen a sheep, and this question confuses her. He describes them as fluffy animals, and Sukha confirmed she has already seen such. He reasons that sheep are unlikely to be nearby, they avoid dangerous places. He asks a Sukhat to definitely inform him and Murk if she accidentally finds something. Joshua smiles and says he is returning to work. Embarrassed, a Sukhat quickly offers him her company and help. Ilia scolds him, insisting that he needs to rest after not sleeping for so long. Joshua looks at her, and in his gaze there is genuine concern about whether she is okay. Both agree everyone needs a little rest. After 2 days, the settlement has noticeably grown. Rows of new houses have lined up. From the balcony, Joshua and Ilia admire the work they have done. They look around with admiration, noticing that their home now resembles a real town. Joshua suddenly announced that their next project is to provide constant access to water, and Ilia was quite taken aback by this. Trembling with excitement, she asks if he plans to create a river. He says no. He eagerly explains a simpler, practical plan to dig a ditch to divert water from the village river. Ilia admits that his new plan still sounds like a very difficult task. He adds that he has already asked several demis to start digging the water channel. He expects the project to be completed by the next day and again impresses Ilia. Strange, she said, it seems there is nothing he cannot do. Lightly blushing, she prepares to ask him a special favor. A young woman named Ilia nervously addressed a dark-haired youth named Joshua. Shyly fidgeting, she makes a special request, that it happen after the village finishes building the water channel. Joshua gladly agrees to do anything she needs, and she responds with sincere gratitude. With growing excitement, Ilia tells where the southern spring is located, from which warm water flows. When they mention the hot spring, Joshua's face lit up with excitement. Ilia admits with surprise that he knows about them, and adds that they are really cute. He nods enthusiastically. He recalls how they refresh the body and drive away fatigue. Ilia excitedly talks about her simple dream that their village would have a hot spring where everyone could finally wash properly. When she apologizes for being selfish, he gently reassures her and says that it is a good idea. He thoughtfully looks at their current situation, bathing in the cold riverbed, and agrees that it is not ideal. Joshua concludes the best plan is to bring warm water directly from the spring. Very sparkling, Ilia, full of enthusiasm, offers to lead him to the place. He shines with pure joy. He agreed to go on the expedition. Her happy expression instantly twists into a funny but threatening growl of irritation. Ilia glared fiercely at the 3 figures who suddenly appeared and interrupted their moment alone. Maida, Asuha, and Murk burst in and loudly demand, "What is going on here?" Asuha explains that she felt as if an exciting outing awaited ahead, so she decided to join them. Maida insists that Josh and Ilia cannot be left alone in that dangerous area. Ilia scoffs, waved off their explanation, saying it was just an excuse to join. Confused, Ilia denies that she is going to swim, but Maida points to the towel in her hands. Joshua tries to calm them down, saying they are only going to inspect the spring. When everything was settled, determined, Ilia now leads the larger group forward. They come out onto a picturesque clearing, and Joshua, unable to hide his admiration, speaks of its natural beauty. Seeing the water bubbling, he cautiously decides to check its temperature with his hand. He yelped in pain and sharply pulled his hand out of the scalding water. Clenching his burned hand, he says the spring is too hot for people to enter. Ilia fervently offers to wash his back, but Maida immediately takes that task upon herself. Stunned by their audacity, Joshua firmly refuses their offers of help. In the background, Maida and Asuha are already happily splashing in the hot water. Maida aloud wonders, are only demons invulnerable to this unbearable heat? One Sohawk, and that means they will have to cool the water for the other half-humans. Joshua thinks that the water, when it reaches the village, will still be warm. Suddenly the earth rumbled with a deep, rhythmic roar, and the whole group flinched. Joshua wonders if it is an earthquake, but Mark feels it is not. Suha suggests those steps are like a large herd of wild boars. Noticing that the village might be in danger, Joshua decisively decides they need to investigate. He apologized for interrupting, but Ilia reassured him, "Don't worry." Maida jokingly teases Ilia he is the most upset about the interrupted bath. Joshua promises grateful Maida that they will later build a real hot spring. He asks Sahad to fly ahead and warn the village, and she gladly agrees. Sukhak rises into the sky and rushes swiftly to their home to deliver the news. Joshua resolutely declares that the rest will come out of the forest to confront the threat. The group burst into a full sprint, racing toward the source of the commotion. Josh's face is tense. He runs and feels how large the approaching herd is. He spotted a huge cloud of dust and realized only a large herd of boars could have raised it. Elsewhere, a red-haired man notices that boars in armor usually do not gather in groups. Joshua and Ilia emerged from behind the trees, anxiously pondering the advance of the Demon King's army. They climbed to the ridge above the plains and for the first time clearly saw the commotion. Joshua's eyes widened in shock when he realized that these creatures were nothing like he had imagined. A large dark mass rumbles across the field below them, rushing in a frantic panic run. On the screen, creatures are seen greedily gnawing the grass as they move forward. He froze, unable to believe his eyes. The flock turned out to be monstrous sheep called fleeps. Joshua explains that flips are sheep that the Demon King's army turned into monsters. He continues, saying that despite their valuable wool and milk, they are fiercely ferocious and intelligent. He understands what an incredible challenge it is to take on such a large, dangerous herd. One of the flips suddenly shuddered since they appeared on the ridge. It sharply turns and emits an alarm cry warning the entire pack about the people. Ilia exploded with anger and accused them of disturbing her. The red-haired observer realizes that this talkative flotilla must be the herd leader. Ilia shudders as the flip's mood becomes threatening, even though the grass is so tasty. The leader of the flotilla orders the herd to attack and get rid of the people. The flotilla leader in sunglasses incites his comrades with shouts against the people. Suddenly, a huge panic stampede begins. The ground trembles from the force of their charge. Joshua's face froze in a mask of anxiety as an overwhelming force surged upon them. Ilia resolutely stood before him, loudly ordered to step back and tensed, preparing for battle. Joshua clenches his hand, looks into Meta's eyes and says, "We need to retreat to the village, there are too many of them." Preparing to flee, he notices that Murk has stopped and asks what is wrong. Murk feels a strange tingling. Instinct pushes him not to run away from danger. Before Joshua can react, Murk releases a powerful, echoing howl that spreads across the entire field. Suddenly, from the darkness emerges a pack of large, fierce werewolves, summoned by this call. Werewolves bare their sharp fangs and growl ominously at the looming threat. Joshua, overwhelmed by panic, shouted a warning. He believed that direct confrontation was too dangerous. Ilia sharply caught Joshua's attention, pointing to a sudden change in the enemy's attack. Flips who were charging an attack suddenly stopped and froze in fear. Confused, the flips realize their bodies have become alien and their legs simply do not obey. One of the whiners seemed to scream. These creatures, resembling dogs, are terrifying in appearance. Joshua suddenly realizes that their natural predator-prey connection could be the key to victory. Seizing the opportunity, he decisively orders Murk, "Let the werewolves surround the flips." Paralyzed flips tremble with horror as the wolves begin to encircle them. The fence quickly surrounds the frightened herd, cutting off every escape route. Trapped flips bleed in terror, not knowing what to do now. When the enemy is under control, Joshua calls upon his magic and grows a sturdy wooden fence. Flips are now trapped, squeezed, and pressed together in a magical enclosure. One of the flips notices a new threat approaching from behind their backs. The rest of the village defenders' horned, winged demis burst onto the scene. The fleet leader fiercely shouts at his comrades, "Stop being capricious." Ilia, her fear gone, decisively gives the command, "Take them all down." She silently sneaks up behind one of the flips trapped in the snare. Sword in hand, she froze for a moment and prepares to strike the creature that suspects nothing. Flot widely opens his eyes in alarm as Ilia looms over him. Suddenly, the Flot leader staggered and fell with a heavy thud. The rest of the pack cries out in despair. Their leader, Ceres, has fallen. Ilia asks Joshua what to do. The flips have completely lost the will to fight. Joshua suggests interrogating the creatures. They can speak after all. The group stands opposite a huge, anxious herd. It waits tensely, ready to communicate. One of the flips blinks slowly, her posture slumped in complete defeat. Ilia cautiously approaches, soothing the frightened creatures with a quiet voice and assures them he means no harm. Flot says they were recently attacked by humans, and they are terrified. Joshua asks if they are from the Demon King's army, and the creature answers affirmatively. He tells how they were captured and decided to break free from that terrible imprisonment. The fleet painfully recounts how they were treated cruelly, given only murky water and rotten meat. The creature bitterly explains its constant fear after the escape. It is being pursued by everyone. Joshua quietly confirms they are in serious danger now they are on human territory. While the flips nervously squeak, Ilia gently tugs Joshua's sleeve to get his attention. Ilia suggests that they could help, and surprised Joshua asks if she is sure. Ilia, with a bright smile, confidently leaves the decision to Josh, the leader of their alliance. Joshua, embarrassed by this title, decides to deal with the trembling creatures. In front of the nervous crowd, Joshua announces his decision. He will accept them all. The fleet leader, Ceres, looks up and is surprised by the unexpected offer of shelter. Joshua proposes to make this land their new permanent home, and this shocks the entire series. He offers a deal where everyone wins protection in exchange for skin and milk. The flips are delighted. They exclaim that with such a deal they would be extremely happy. Ceres sincerely thanks, and Joshua solemnly introduces himself before the relieved creature. Joshua seals the deal with a firm handshake, shaking the flea's hoof as a sign of partnership. Their new journey begins. They walk across grassy plains, heading towards the settlement. Joshua points to a convenient spot very close to both the river and their village. He asked what kind of housing they would prefer, and Ceres requests a large communal barn. Understanding what they need, Joshua agrees to build a large barn for the entire flock. With a dramatic doodan, a huge modern barn instantly appears before their eyes. Flips froze in amazement and declared that it was more incredible even than the generals of the Demon King himself. Filled with joy, they gather closely around it and immediately offer fur and milk. Murk and Asuha touch the Flip's fur. It is incredibly fluffy and warm. Suham marvels enthusiastically at the incredible softness of the spruce, and Joshua decides to take some. Joshua peeks into the barn and already imagines the soft fabric and fluffy bedding he will be able to create. Inside, he finds the whole pack sound asleep, piled together in a soft, fluffy heap. He notices that they are probably very exhausted from being on the run for so long. Joshua decides to let them rest, but the thought of how to make a new bed still spins in his head. One of the Fleeps stirred and, to Joshua's surprise, invited him to sleep with them. The creature reveals the truth. Fleeps also served as portable beds in the Demon King's army. With a happy smile, the Flot asks him to come back a little later, and Joshua gladly agrees. That night the scene changes. A bright full moon hangs over the village. Flot sleeps soundly under the bed cover, quietly snoring. Joshua's body and his sense of satisfaction settled into an incredibly soft and pleasant fluffiness. He notices with delight that the fur is even better than he imagined, then touches something soft and fluffy. Blinking, Joshua froze, shocked and confused by the unexpected discovery. He recoiled in surprise, wondering what he had just touched, and let out a frightened sound. In the frame, you can see how his hand squeezes something soft. Another person froze in surprise. Suddenly, a girl with horns like a sheep appears and accuses him, saying he is dirty because he touched her. She angrily puffed out her cheeks and reminded him that everything with their milk must be in order. Yet she yields, remembering her promise to let him take it anytime. Suddenly, a dazzling flash exploded before the surprised Joshua, momentarily blinding him. The sudden transformation caught him off guard. He stood stunned and speechless. In the place where Flips used to be, now stand two young women with sheep-like features. The series explains that their demonic blood allows them to transform into their own demonic forms. She says that in her human form, it will be easier for him to drink the milk. Cheerfully hopping, she enthusiastically urges him to drink it right now. A stern voice pronounces the series title, and Ilia appears behind her with a displeased expression. Ilia reminds the series that there is order in everything. Her presence thunders with authority. The frightened girl stammers, turning over in her head the thought of whether she was mistaken in offering milk. Ilia calmly tells Joshua that he will not blame him for ignorance, and then grabs the series. Pulling off the flip-flop that resisted, Ilia announced that he would establish several basic rules. In bed, Joshua Galp lies nervously, hoping that nothing too bad will happen with the series. He notices that Murk and Asuha are also sound asleep next to him under the blanket. Looking at the moon, he decides that these calm, though chaotic, days are not so bad after all. The scene suddenly jumps forward. 3 days later, the sky is clear and bright. The community is thriving. New tools for fishing, farming, and mining bring considerable benefits. Everyone is delighted and celebrates the cozy bedding with fleet fur and boar leather. The girl with horns proudly points to the new barns and warehouses and says that it is all thanks to Joshua. Joshua and his friends look excitedly at the newly built canal flowing through the village. The wolf friend is thrilled and wants to swim, but Joshua explains it is for drinking. The girl with horns notes that it will make drawing water easier, and Joshua feels that they have done all they could. Ilia announced her plan to go scout the old fortress, and Joshua decided to join her. He insists that he take her as a guard, saying it suits her as a leader. The girl with horns worries that Ilia might be eavesdropping on them right now. The white wolf Murk trots up and says he will go with them too. Ilian notes since the others are busy, only the 3 of them will remain. Murk himself offered to go ahead to scout, and Joshua assured him they will catch up soon. The 3 set out for the formidable stone fortress towering in the distance. A group of flips peacefully graze in the field while the journey continues. Joshua and the girl with horns walk through the forest, calm on their faces. Joshua looked up startled when Murk persistently called his name. Murk rushes back to them out of breath, shouting that something is terribly wrong at the fortress. Bofk brought grim news. The people they had seen earlier are all dead. Joshua is stunned, realizing that the slave hunters were killed. He recalls their leader Kobe, and Murk confirms that he is among the dead. Murk adds an important detail: it turns out other people were killed as well. The horned girl feels that this was not a simple mercenary betrayal, as she initially thought. Joshua and his comrades look grimly, swallowing the heavy news. He decisively decides they need to go and see for themselves, and they set off for the fortress. They arrive at a place of utter devastation. The fortress is completely destroyed. Joshua stares in shock-frozen horror before the wreckage and the bodies of the dead, impaled on stakes. The girl with horns stands over a corpse and watches how brutally they were killed. She concluded that the attackers must have harbored incredible hatred toward their victims. Joshua suggests that some demi-group nearby, seeking revenge, could have attacked the slave owners. He notices that even the houses and fields are burned to the ground. He hopes to find seeds of the surviving crop. Murk emits a low, warning growl. The wolf tenses, sensing that something is sneaking toward them through the ruins. Suddenly, several figures emerge from the debris surrounding the trio. One of the figures, a half-human with tiger ears, shudders with alertness. The ambushers turn out to be a formidable pack of warriors with striped tails. They hold curved blades at the ready. Their posture is powerful and threatening. Joshua's eyes suddenly open wide. He recognized those mysterious attackers. He calls them half-tigers, the infamous mercenaries of Granku. The girl with the horn mishears the name, but Joshua quickly clarifies they are from the state of Rank. In a flashback, their tragic story appears: how slave hunters drove them from their homeland. Joshua recalled that he had heard about them before, but never suspected he would meet them here. The mercenary leader, a young and fierce woman, orders them to raise their hands and surrender. Joshua shouted in response, his voice breaking, "We are not enemies, we ourselves fought against the slave traders." Leader Mia snorted at his statement and accused him, "You are a cowardly slave hunter." Meta draws a katana, stands to protect Joshua, and decisively says that he is not like other people. The half-tiger warrior frowned at the horned girl and grimly called her a slave. With a sympathetic look, she calls the horned girl a poor bastard. Their blades clashed with a fierce, sparkling strike and locked them in a fierce duel. The horned girl shouts a denial, and her opponent mockingly praises her strength. Joshua decisively orders his wolf companion Murk to protect him while the fight continues. He notices that Meta and the demi-tiger are almost perfectly equal in strength. With anxiety, he sees more and more demi-tigers approaching the fight. Joshua decisively decides to intervene. He does not want to make mercenaries his enemies. Meta, still engaged in the duel, warns him, "Stay away." Ignoring her pleas, he rushed forward, preparing to unleash his creation magic. He sharply thrust his hand forward, shouting a spell to summon a stone wall. The half-tiger leader leaned back, her eyes wide open in shock. From the impact, she stumbled, and only one question remained in her mind: what just happened? Joshua watched her reaction and rejoiced his intervention worked. Unbroken, the warrior jumped onto the wall and shouted that the fight was not over yet. Suddenly, the elder half-tiger appears and sternly orders his daughter Mia to stop. Mia sharply objected to her father. Joshua's group undoubtedly arouses suspicion. Father agreed, noticing the strange combination of a human and a werewolf. Then he notices the horned demon Meta, and the strange trio finally becomes complete. The elder warrior says that such a gathering is not seen every day. Suddenly, an arrow whistled past, frightening the mercenaries with its insane speed. Neo sharply turns around. He is shocked by the unexpected projectile. The whole group sharply turned around. A sudden attack from the ruins caught them by surprise. In the darkness, the silhouette of an archer emerged. He sharply asked, "Who is there?" Joshua froze in disbelief, recognizing the newcomer, his friend Ilia. Ilia's hand firmly rests on the hilt of her katana in its sheath. The enraged demi-tiger lunges at Ilia, ignoring the leader's command, "Stop." With incredible skill, Ilia deftly parries the attacks of two mercenaries at once. Nia, the leader of the half-tigers, watches the unfolding duel with a cold, unwavering expression. Ilia grits his teeth and in fierce combat hisses at his attacker, "Idiot." He shouts fiercely for the mercenaries to back away from Mr. Joshua. Joshua watches the lightning-fast change of strikes and cannot help but notice the speed of both fighters. He suddenly realizes the half-tiger restrains himself, holding one sword in the sheath. Joshua shouts to Ilia to stop, assuring that her opponent has no real intention to kill. The male half-tiger admits his sword will not withstand Ilia's tremendous strength. Nia decisively tells her father that she will join the fight, but he stops her. Father calmly says that Ilia is not an opponent his subordinate can handle. Joshua sighed with relief, glad that the leader is not hostile. The senior mercenary notices Ilia's incredible speed and thoughtfully wonders how this will end in battle. Fight ended, he apologizes and says, "I am Balon." The boy smiled in response and introduced himself. "My name is Joshua." Balon asks, "Are you from the Fendel Alliance, the very merchant they mentioned?" Joshua confirms this and anxiously asks about the bodies of the slave hunters. Balon explains simply, the slave traders owe them a debt and they came to collect it. Joshua understood and said that they asked the slave traders to leave this place. Balon apologizes and says that he has nothing left to give to Joshua's group. Joshua agrees and says that they will at least check the fields to see if there are any crops. As soon as things were settled, Balon announced that he was heading back south. Then he turned his gaze to his daughter and called Nia. Murk asks if they were looking for someone and Nia, shaking her head and pressing her lips, replies, she found no one. Balon tensely asks Murk if he saw any other demi-tigers nearby. The male half-tiger thanked Murk and promised to let them know if he found anyone. Joshua pieces together the picture of their situation, hoping that they will soon find their captured friends. Suddenly, a burst of loud strikes and rumbles sounded nearby. Balon looked at the commotion and grimly said how terrible this situation is. It turned out that the source of the noise was a catastrophic pile of carts. Two younger demi-tigers struggle amid the wreckage of their transport. Wagons lie in a heap, wheels broken, frames smashed. Other mercenaries were chatting and complaining about their ruined vehicles. Nia screams with rage and helpless despair. Their expensive carts are destroyed. The size of Balon and they immediately understood that now they would have to carry the luggage by hand. Joshua boldly stepped forward and sincerely offered to repair the wagons with his craft magic. Nia looks at him with distrust. She does not believe he can fix all five. He looked at the damage and decided, only the wheels and axles need repairing. With a confident smile, Joshua says he will manage in a few minutes. Nia laughs scornfully. His bold claim seems to her complete nonsense. She insists even the most skilled mages need a whole day for one wagon. Joshua smiles and says those mages were probably busy with some other matters. Balon and Mia look thoughtful, though with a hint of skepticism. Intrigued, Balon gives him a chance and promises thanks as soon as he finishes everything. Joshua Nils stood before the rubble, preparing to start work. He decides that it is better to carve new wooden axles from scratch by himself. With one motion, all the carts disappeared in a cloud of magic. Neopanics demanded to know where their carts had gone. Balon tells his panicked daughter, calm down and just watch. He admits, although he understands how magic is created, this goes beyond the usual. Joshua thinks he has never seen anyone else manage to fit an entire cart. He realizes that his craft magic must be very advanced, even for the south. In a moment, the fully repaired wagons reappeared like new. Balon, deeply impressed, suddenly invites Joshua to join their mercenary group. Ilia instantly objects, her gaze sharp and protective. Joshua's other companions sneak closer and closely surround him, as if he is their property. Joshua, smiling gently, politely declines Balon's invitation. Balon offers another option. When they are nearby, they will hire him to repair. And he asks Joshua what he wants to be paid for the repair. Joshua asks for seeds for sowing, asks to give a decent amount, if possible. Balon at first raised an eyebrow in surprise, but agreed and told a subordinate to bring the seed. Neoprodisters ask, why distribute seeds that they themselves cannot plant? He whispers that these seeds are a precious legacy from Grank and her mother. Balon said grimly that it is better than letting the seeds rot. He wants to entrust them to someone who can help them grow. He hands Joshua a heavy sack and says that inside is frank barley. Joshua barely manages the weight of the sack while Balon gives him more and more advice. When everything was decided, Balon waved goodbye and invited Joshua to visit. He freezes. A serious expression appears on his face. The mercenary leader throws out one last, simple warning, be careful. Joshua asked if he meant the slave hunters, and Balon just waved it off. He accepts the vague warning with thanks, but a barely noticeable anxiety crosses his face. Balon waved one last time as his group prepared to depart. Joshua and his friends watched as the ethereal traces of the mercenaries' departure slowly vanished into the air. A small white creature resembling a fox mutters, looking disappointed at the tiny amount of viable seeds. Joshua does not lose faith and says that their modest haul is still a great start. The story suddenly turned to the past and told how they combed the fields after the mercenaries left. Murk the fox used her sharp sense of smell and found only 200 rips. Turning to the present, Joshua decides that their main goal is to increase the seed stock. He begins giving a long, technical explanation about how the king demon's turnips absorb people. All these complex details completely went over Murk's head, and the creature was left utterly confused. Joshua simply says, these are large, fast-growing turnips that can be harvested in a month. Then he mentions the barley they were given, very bitter in taste, but still edible. Clenching his fist, Joshua decided to plow the plot for new sowing. With a shining, determined smile, he says he is ready to start. Standing before the boundless, overgrown space, he proclaimed that this will become their new field. He says the first necessary step is to weed out all the weeds. Suddenly, clever ideas struck him as he thought about the best way to act. He called out to Ceres, who was in her flock of fluffy black creatures somewhere in the distance. Joshua asks hopefully if Ceres and the Fleeps would agree to eat grass. With a cheerful smile, Ceres willingly agrees to help them clear the field. Joshua orders his comrades to start plowing the land where the Flips have arrived. He shows a girl with horns. The goal is a sack of seeds that they are going to plant. Meta closely examines the completely black barley grains and wonders if they will sprout at all. Joshua admits that he is not well versed in farming, but trusts Balon's word they will manage. Blonde Ilia arrives with a group of experienced farmers to help them. Villagers plow the land together, while Flips quietly graze in the background. A diverse group of half-humans cautiously begins planting seeds in the freshly loosened soil. Edismiles smiles resolutely to join the work on the communal farm. Ilia gently holds a clod of earth with seeds in her palms and prepares to carefully plant them. With hope in her eyes, she quietly whispers a prayer that the single seed will multiply. Joshua watches her gentle movements, and a supportive smile appears on his face. He recalls how Balon once dreamed of seeing the beautiful barley field of his native land. Memories of Balon and his daughter ignite in Joshua an even stronger determination to succeed. The community works peacefully side by side, planting the seeds of their future. After a few days, the face of a little girl appears. She says she has a request. She calls Joshua's name, and the request already trembles on her lips. Joshua, sitting and reading, looks up thoughtfully, surprised by the sudden interruption. He sees two young girls, Murk and Asuha, approaching him with a request. With shining eyes, the two girls shout in unison that they want new clothes. Joshua asks if they mean some special clothes for a certain purpose. They excitedly explain that they want to dress alike to look like real magicians. Understanding their request, Joshua agreed to make them from soft fleet fur. He imagines the design of magician costumes in his mind so that they match each other, while the girls watch eagerly. With one swift magical movement, he immediately creates two new, luxuriously decorated mantles. His hand moved with grace and precision as the magical creation process was completed. Murk happily twirls in his new outfit and asks Joshua what he thinks about it. With a self-satisfied and proud smile, he praises his brilliant work. Smiling, he told Sohi that her new mantle looks wonderful and will help her in learning magic. Suha shyly lifts her leg and asks what he thinks about her outfit. In a close-up, her traditional footwear and the flowers blooming around her are visible. Murkwin does not back down. Joshua must continue to be her magic teacher. He gently explains that he has already taught her all the basics he knows. He quietly says that she will need a school grimoire to learn more. Unwilling to leave, she demands that he simply write a grimoire for her. He will have to disappoint them by explaining that he cannot create everything from scratch. Joshua promises to buy her a gloomy wine from the human town if there is a chance. The mention of human towns makes Murk's ear twitch with displeasure. Seeing their disappointment, Joshua rushes to retract his offer, but it's already too late. Murk looks at him seriously and says, "I don't want you to leave." Suha tugs his sleeve, also attracting his attention. Murk asks Asuha, "What is going on between you two?" Meta bursts in dramatically, dragging along a huge boar, and sincerely compliments the girl on her new clothes. Suga's Mowgli smiles and tells Meta that Joshua has tailored stylish robes for them. Meta looks and blushes, mumbling that she also wants a special outfit. Murk sharply replies that the mage's image would not suit a warrior like Meta. Angrily, he hears a shout, "She can look good in anything she wears." Joshua quickly intervenes and offers to sew any clothes that Meta desires. Her anger melts away, and instead joy and hope bloom on her face as she contemplates it. Meta is embarrassed and confused. She cannot immediately decide which outfit she wants. Joshua and the other watch as she struggles, trying to come up with a request. After a moment of thought, Meta clenches her fists. The decision is made. She turns the question to him and asks what clothes he would like. When Joshua praised her current armor, a brilliant idea flashed in her mind. With shining eyes, Meta excitedly asks for those special clothes that people wear to weddings. The other two girls suddenly notice that people also have special wedding attire. When Joshua confirms this, Meta tugs at his clothes and loudly says that this is exactly what she wants. Murk and Asuha instantly intervene, exclaiming that they also want wedding dresses. The situation descends into chaos when Meta announces that she will marry Joshua. Ilia bursts in and scolds the others. They have caused trouble for Joshua. Joshua warmly smiles, assuring everyone that he could never hate them. He jokingly tells Ilia that he might eventually hate her, but immediately adds that he never could. Ilia gently takes his hand, her expression soft and full of emotion. With Tears in her eyes, she confesses her eternal love to Joshua. A calm, satisfied smile spreads across her face. She savors the moment. Blushing, Joshua responds in kind, confessing that he loves her too. He quickly adds that he loves them all and receives a collective look for it. Meta accuses Ilia of trying to get ahead, but she is sharply told, "Don't cause trouble." Suhad firmly says that Joshua is simply tired of all their childish antics. Ilia smugly says that the leader's partner should be a calm, mature woman like her. While they argue, Joshua involuntarily wonders how he somehow became the leader along the way. He recalls how recently in the village they asked him to give his blessing for a couple's marriage. He pondered his new duties and sincerely rejoiced at the opportunity to help others. A shadow of doubt flashed through his mind. He doubted whether he was capable of protecting everyone. He decided to give all his strength for the sake of the peasants. However, a dark memory of betrayal by friends surfaced again and shook his confidence. A wave of self-doubt overwhelmed Joshua, and he began to question whether he was capable of leading others. Ilia noticed his suffering and anxiously asked, "Are you unwell?" His frightening gaze made others think that he was afraid of Ilia. He tries to brush off their worries, saying he was just lost in thought. To distract them, he offers to sew clothes for everyone if only they stop fighting. Ilia smiles warmly and offers his help in anything he might need. Meta placed her hand on his chest and gently called him their precious friend, almost her husband. Other girls offer him a strong shoulder, unconditionally support him, and urge, "Rely on us." A young man named Joshua smiled warmly and gratefully at his friends. Suddenly, a strange knocking is heard. He freezes and listens. Was it just his imagination? A small, fluffy creature burst in and screamed wildly that Joshua was in trouble. He asks the breathless creature, Ceres, what is wrong, while his friends watch. Ceres explains that when they were grazing in the south, they suddenly saw a large group of people. The creature adds that a sinister horde of orcs was chasing right behind them. Hearing Grimm's unwavering confidence, Joshua concluded, this must be the army of the Demon King. Shock froze on his face as he tried to comprehend the impossible news of their arrival. Without hesitation, he rushes through the village streets and suddenly frightens Ilia, who is watching. Thoughts race in his head. He remembers that when he left, the Demon King's army was already gaining momentum. Running to the gates, he knows he cannot ignore this. In the distance, he sees a dust cloud raised by the approaching horde. His worried friends, a group of half-humans, rush to catch up with him. He shouts at them, his voice breaking, explaining what a serious political threat a neutral demigod who helps people poses. He sternly orders the trumpeter at the gates to securely close them as soon as he leaves. Friend protests decisively. It is too dangerous for him to go alone. Joshua explains that if Demi helps, a war will break out with the Demon King's army. He looks back at them and suddenly realizes their involvement threatens everyone. Clenching his teeth with determination in his heart, he prepares to face the threat alone. He shouts to his friends as if deciding once and for all, just stay and wait for me. Running alone across the endless plains, Elias was worried that Call was following him. In the rattling cage, frightened refugee people huddled together in fear. The blond man leading the cart shouts in despair that they will be caught. Joshua appears right in front of them and, looking at the surprised man, decisively orders, "Run further north." Promising to buy them time, he watches as the grateful man urges his horse forward. He unleashes magic, shouts the technique fence, and a barrier bursts from the ground. Peeking from behind the massive structure, he confirms, the enemy is here. The British orcs abruptly stop and ask who he is, while their leader roars. They burst out laughing, mocking the only unarmed man who dared to oppose them. Hyder Macy thought to himself how terribly frightening their cruel laughter was. Despite the fear, he firmly plants his foot in the ground and prepares to hold his position. He loudly throws a bold challenge and promises to take down as many of them as possible. The orc warrior rushed forward and, grimacing in a mocking smile, hissed that only Joshua would die. A simple plan forms in his mind to craft a sharp stick to hold back their advance. But he understands well he is unlikely to repeat the same technique twice. A sudden flash of movement catches his eye. Shock instantly appears on his face. In one moment, Ilia with a single clean cut sliced the orc that lunged at him. He froze, not believing his eyes, marveling at how she appeared so suddenly and instantly struck. Ilia grimly declares that his enemies are their enemies, and she will challenge them all. Holding the sword at the ready, she begs him not to bear this burden alone. The rest of the orcs spoke in confused noise due to the sudden turn of events. He promises to help him just as he once saved her. A beautiful floral frame surrounds the two of them, standing shoulder to shoulder against the horde. He, in panic, shouts her name while she prepares to face the enemy. The orc sneaks up from behind and suddenly swings his weapon to strike her from above. With a sly smile, she deftly ducked under the clumsy swing. He swiftly delivers a cut that disables the orc groans in pain. He issues the horde an ultimatum: retreat no and I will spare you. Orcs only mock the very thought of retreating before someone like her. The leader growls, orders an attack, and refuses to retreat. Joshua suddenly realized that the orcs mistake Ilia for a human, and this is what protects the other demis. Don't rush forward, he shouted. I'll lure the enemies onto myself. Ignoring his pleas, she throws herself into the fight, and this annoys him immensely. She transforms into a whirlwind of steel while he creates a shield to repel another enemy. Looking piercingly at the beaten survivors, she asks if they still want to continue fighting. The rest of the orcs shuddered. Their confidence was clearly shaken by her strength. Pride pushed them and they let out one last defiant roar, unwilling to lose to her. Joshua clenches his fist as he and Ilia prepare for the final assault. A sharp click sounded, a sign that the hidden mechanism had triggered. From behind the fence, a huge wave of sharpened stakes suddenly shot out, surprising Joshua. He looks back at the village, eyes wide open from stunned realization. Along the wall, all his friends lined up armed and ready to fight. A diverse group of demi-humans stands, aiming crossbows. They support their friends. Ilia shouts his name, pulling him out of the shocked trance. He apologizes for acting her own way. Her expression is sincere. He gently soothes her. Everything is fine. They destroyed the enemy and protected their secret. Ilia sighs with relief, her face flushed from the warm glow of victory. Joshua felt his thoughts pulling him into the future. He knew the Demon King's army would come to investigate. He realizes their secret village will be exposed sooner or later. Standing over the fallen orcs, he decides their bodies must be burned. He tells Ilia that they also need to strengthen the defense before what awaits us. Returning, they froze in surprise. Before them swarmed a lively crowd of human refugees. The horned girl Meta rushes to them, urgently calling out their names. She says that there were wounded near the gates. They are now being rescued and cared for. Joshua thanks her for the information and decides to personally talk to the newcomers. Ilia offers his help if you need anything, and receives a nod of agreement in response. The refugee people, exhausted adults and children, nervously chatter among themselves. A young horned person with a somewhat simple expression looks on, in their eyes both curiosity and anxiety. The blonde youth Barik recognizes Joshua and rushes swiftly to him. He desperately grabs Joshua, asking if he is a friend of the Demises, and begs for help. Joshua Kamlai gently calms the confused man. Don't worry about anything. He simply says the Demises will help everyone who does not intend to harm them. When Barik calms down a bit, Joshua quietly asks where his group escaped from. Barik grimly admits that they are from Saburno, which fell under the blows of the Demon King's army. News hits Joshua hard. He understands that all the cities in the south are already captured. Barik bitterly confirmed the fall of his city and answered Joshua's question about the army. He says that a squad of orcs with 5,000 warriors is already moving north. Joshua asks about their commander and learns that his name is Bish an orc. Barik adds that Bish is battle-hardened and wears equipment made from demon horns. Dark memory surfaces as Joshua realizes that the squad of bishops destroyed his homeland. He gratefully thanks Barik for the information and advises him on a safe route to head north. A girl with a horn watches as two men stand near the refugee wagons. A smiling half-human offers food to the refugees and earnestly asks them to eat before leaving. Her kindness moved Barik, and he asks if he can really accept this offer. The two men shook hands, formally introducing themselves to each other. Later, refugees and villagers gather around one table and eat together in a lively, communal atmosphere. A fox-like girl named Murk intently gazes at people. Her look caught Joshua. She says that she hasn't observed people for a long time except him. She quietly says that she feels one of them is not just looking, he is waiting for something. Her sharp gaze fixed on Barik, who is eating with a worried and detached expression. The blonde man Barik suddenly stands up and loudly shouts to his people to stop. Joshua looks anxiously and calls Barik, wait. From afar, Joshua watched the commotion, wondering what was happening there. Barik passionately insists that he cannot accept more help. He considers it wrong. With grim determination, he announces that they will fight the Demon King's army themselves. He turns and extends a small wooden box, asking Joshua to accept it. Inside, a frightened half-tigress trembles while Barik explains how she was captured. He confesses his shame and vows to repent for his terrible intentions. Joshua's face instantly lit up when he praised Barik for changing his mind. Murk gently looks at the child and promises that they will find friends for her. Barik asks Joshua to take care of her, understanding that the demons also have families. Joshua notices that his Barik is unarmed, and with the power of magic instantly creates a weapon for him. Barik struggles heavily with the heavy weapon and sincerely thanks Joshua for everything. Joshua explains with a gentle smile that he is a wizard craftsman. Smoke calmly rises from the chimneys on the village roofs. Joshua gathers his comrades around a long table. He apologizes for suddenly bringing news about the Demon King's army. The attacker from Medellin declared that they all decided to fight. Joshua agrees but hopes that, if possible, the conflict can be avoided. He looks at their fortified walls as if hinting that a peace treaty is possible. Ilia agrees because he believes it is better to prevent any bloodshed. Etta mentions that her ancestors also dreamed of peace. Joshua insists they need to prepare the enemy cannot be fully trusted. He suggests taking the initiative, leaving the village and going to fight. Ilia looks surprised, doubting whether leaving their walls is really safer. He explains that a long siege will exhaust them and endanger their supplies. Joshua clenches his fist because he knows a battle of attrition is certain death. His comrades look anxiously, they understand that they will have to leave anyway. With a sharp jerk of his hand, he emphasizes his opinion. He insists that by taking the initiative, they will protect their home from damage. Also, this would spare the children and the elderly from participating in the fight. Etta adds demons are much stronger in a direct frontal battle. Ilia and mercenary, knowing their strengths, reveal themselves best outwardly. Joshua sees the orcs, strong but slow and unable to use magic. Ilia notices that their features resemble demons, but demons have significantly more power. He emphasizes that their purple iron armor is much better than the simple steel of the orcs. Their only drawbacks are few people, lack of experience, and the stubbornness of the orcs. Finally, he addresses everyone. What do you think about this dangerous plan? A moment of tense silence fell over the council. Etta speaks first and decisively agrees with Joshua's proposal. Suha and Murk silently nod, and this nod is all their resolute agreement. The fleet representative roared in support. He was tired of being locked up. Murk, pointing a finger, accusatorily says that the fleets must fight now too. Fleets agree and, realizing they have no other choice, rush into the attack. Joshua looks at them with a touched gaze and thanks everyone. He gives his first order, and now everyone will train with the new equipment. He entrusts Murk with healing and asks Asuha to unleash her wind magic. He stated that the rest of the preparations are on his shoulders. With a determined look, he says, I am counting on all of you. Friends smile warmly in their eyes. It is clear that they trust him. On the village roofs, a voice confirms they understood. After 3 days, the half-humans honed their skills, shooting from newly made crossbows. Meta, in the role of sergeant instructor, shouts loudly, fire. He turned to Joshua and sternly said that those who missed must train more. Joshua thoughtfully reflects on how far they have come in creating their own army. The training ground is teeming with Demi, who practice strikes with various weapons. He smiles, full of confidence. Now they have the strongest defense on the entire continent. Etta proudly shows off her new equipment, doing so with confident flair. The little half-tiger girl marvels excitedly that Joshua made all their weapons. From the nearby fence, other children call her to play. Meta nods happily and the shy girl nervously fusses, preparing to join them. Joshua notices that the former prisoner gets along with everyone. Meta is glad that she finally warmed up but still remains silent. He recalls how just a few days ago the girl cried endlessly. They watch the new regime in awe, admiring the village's iron defensive walls. Joshua confidently says that their city will not fall easily before any army. Meta agrees but emphasizes their defense systems can become a trump card in negotiations. Joshua says grimly that they still need to prepare for a possible clash. Comrades stand ready. If they agree, the attack can cause less damage. Above the village proudly rises a newly built stone wall, strong and unshakable. A magnificent hot spring emerges. The water is crystal clear and perfectly warm. Joshua and Meta watch with satisfaction and say, finally ready. Before their eyes spread a wide multi-level complex of hot springs for the village. Joshua explains that this is a reward for the exhausting work they put into preparing for the battle. He turns and sees how other girls are already beginning to undress near the bath. Etta explodes, scolding them for not going to the changing room first. In the steaming water, other half-humans are already calmly resting. Ilia and Meta excitedly announce that they are entering and gladly invite Joshua to join. Ilia, beaming with a smile, says that a separate bath has been prepared for him. Another girl giggles, recalling how he was embarrassed in the toilet. Meta proudly points to the walled-off corner just for him. Confused, Joshua suddenly realized Suha lied about the purpose of that wall. Meta cheekily confirms Suha lied about it. He grumbles that the bathtub is too big, and Asuha explains her logic. Ilia leaned in close, insisting that they would all join him. Her eyes sparkle as she firmly says that washing his back is their job. The other girls loudly objected. They all want to wash his back too. Joshua's playful mood suddenly changed to grim seriousness. Dark vision flashed through his thoughts, friends lying dead on the battlefield. He sharply returns to reality. A hollow, detached expression freezes on his face. He apologizes to the worried Ilia and says he has matters to attend to. He tells them to rest while inside he hides that terrible image of the future he just imagined. The girls look worried while he firmly decides to continue the preparation. Alone in his workshop, Joshua sits on a pile of logs. He gets to work. The material flies everywhere as he creates with his craft magic. Focused, he does not stop crafting. His hands become a blurred motion. He is thrilled by the limitless possibilities of his magical workshop. He knows he can accumulate mountains of materials and even create walls right on the battlefield. Plans for new weapons and projectile launching systems race through his mind. He thinks and thinks, constantly inventing something to suppress his deep, ingrained anxiety. A young man named Joshua Nils was tirelessly crafting something in his workshop, but inside him, anxiety still lived. Although they believe they can win the battle, he is still tormented by deep anxiety. Watching the village from afar, he thought they probably had enough equipment to win. A terrible vision of Ilia's death tightens his heart and reminds him, even in victory, someone will die. In memory emerges their opponent Bish, whose troops wear equipment made from unbreakable demon horns. This knowledge fuels in him a desperate need to craft even more and be fully prepared for them. Evening creeps in, and the sky above the roofs of the quiet village darkens. From afar, someone watches while Joshua sits alone and is still obsessively crafting something. Hearing his name, he freezes completely, shuddering and breaking away from his concentration. Ilia stands over him with a worried look, gently asking him to rest a little. Joshua turned around and, surprised, saw her. In his hand he still clenched a half-finished sword. With a pleading look, Ilia asks him to tell her what is on his mind. She explains that he always helps them, and the new village clearly proves this. Because of his constant help, she sincerely says for both of them, they are ready to do anything for him. Ilia, raising her eyes to him, quietly agrees she feels the same strong bond. He admits their devotion is exactly the reason why he is so deeply afraid. She looks at him confused and asks again, how could he suddenly admit that he is afraid? He says directly that he is most afraid of losing all his new friends and companions. Diving into memories, he sees a time when life was much simpler without friends. At that moment, he had no one left, so he had nothing to lose. Now he admits it was in this special place that he met her and all the others. A single tear rolls down Ilias's cheek. He is moved by the depth of his feelings. Seeing her in tears, he panics and insists that he does not regret any of those meetings. Her small smile clarifies everything. She is happy that he loves them so much. He quietly says yes, his feelings for them are now clear and undeniable. He admits the desire to protect everyone is the true source of his fear. She gently takes his hand, a soothing touch that brings him back to the here and now. Surprised by her gesture, he asks if she feels the same. Ilia, with tears in her eyes, said that she is no longer afraid because he is here. Close-up shows her eye filled with new, unwavering determination. She believes that with him by her side, they will definitely be able to protect everyone together. She looks at him with steadfast confidence and begs him to believe in our strength. With a radiant smile, she pleads with him, do not keep all your burdens to yourself. Joshua looks at her, his face softening. He is moved by her strong words of support. He changes the subject, the orcs they will have to fight in the upcoming battle. He reminds her that their general Bish uses weapons made from demon horns. Ilia's face becomes serious as she considers what the enemy's weapon can do. He explains that the horns are powerful and strong, so Bish's armor looks unbreakable. She wonders if they are really unbreakable even against other mighty demon horns. Ilia steps forward and suggests that weapons made from their horns could be the solution. A sudden flash of insight appeared on Joshua's face. He understood her brilliant idea. She extends her precious horn, a dark and elegant arc resting in her hands. He is stunned. He recognized the very one her father defended at the cost of his own life. She explains that since it is valuable, she wants to use it to protect them. Her selfless and resolute statement deeply moves Joshua. He whispers her name. He raised his hand. The decision is already within him, and he is ready to accept her incredible sacrifice. He firmly grips the horn and agrees to her request without hesitation. Blushing, he promises to craft a true miracle from it. Ilia beams a wide, happy smile, encouraging him to continue working. Ilia watches as Joshua begins forging magic swirls around him. He immediately notices this horn is nothing like the purple iron he can make in a minute. The horn glows, absorbing his mana like a bottomless cup that cannot be filled. The night sky watches over them, and powerful artisan magic works tirelessly. Finally, stretching out his hand, he announced that the forging was complete. He proudly holds up the newly finished weapon, a shiny new katana. He describes its properties, saying it should repel magic and cut through anything. Ilia takes the sword, gratitude shining in her eyes, and she sincerely thanks him. Gripping the hilt so tightly as if she cannot let go, she vows, with this weapon she will protect everyone. Joshua clenches his fist. He agrees that together, as a team, they will fight in this battle. Ilia, whose face burns with determination, agrees with a confident and happy expression. He gently reminds her that she still needs to rest a little before the fight. The next day, their peaceful morning was suddenly interrupted by an urgent arrival. A winged scout swooped down swiftly and shouted that Demi with feline features were already flying towards them. Joshua and the horned companions suddenly realized who it must be. The approaching group. From afar, they see a vast army approaching their gigantic settlement, surrounded by high walls. Thuds on the bridge announced the arrival of the leaders. The half-tiger mercenary Balon and another girl recognized Joshua with surprise. Joshua and his companions look around and recognize the approaching mercenary. Another half-tiger clenches a fist with a sincere meow as a sign of recognition. Riss, the rescued half-tiger child, rushes forward with a cry of sis. Two half-tigers finally reunited in a wild, emotional embrace. Riss sobs with relief, holding tightly to the embrace of her long-lost sister. Joshua confirms to Balon that this child is her daughter, and it is overwhelming. Balon explains that the child was freed by people who passed through here a little earlier. It seems she receives this news with a quiet, thoughtful look. Joshua became serious and asked what business she had come to their village for. She irritably explains that she must deliver a message to the orc General Bish. When asked, she said that in 2 hours fish would be swimming near the road. She seemingly says to them in passing, if you have business with him, this is your chance. When the mercenaries leave, Joshua watches them with a thoughtful expression on his face. Meta, the girl with horns, growls in irritation. Balon didn't even thank them. Joshua clenches his fist. Doubt trembled inside, but he decided to stick to their plan. Meta and Ilia agree to leave guards in the village and prepare their forces. Ilia decisively announced that they would set out on the road to intercept the orc General Bish. A new chapter begins. Before us stretches an endless landscape of mountains and forests under a cloudy sky. Ilia approaches Joshua, ready to explain how their army is positioned. She confirms in a firm voice, all their troops are already deployed for the upcoming battle. On the tactical map, their formation is outlined: demons, werewolves, archers, and mighty golems. Meta confidently says that with these preparations they have nothing to fear. Joshua clenches his fist, admitting that he still hopes for a peaceful resolution. He waits for the enemy, confessing to himself that fear still lives within him despite their strength. Ilia gently takes his hand, a quiet sign of support and reassurance. Her touch startles him, but her presence alongside the others slowly calms him. He barely smiles gratefully, soothed by the unwavering support of friends. The ground trembles as finally on the horizon the formidable orc army rumbles. A small group of allies steadfastly holds position, waiting for the enemy's arrival. The huge Commander Bish, seeing their motley group, sternly demands to know who they are. Joshua, surrounded by his companions, introduced himself and declared that they are the Fendel Alliance. The orc commander suspiciously utters the unfamiliar name, addressing this strange gathering as Demis. On the side, Balon shows they are the same Demis from the fortress. The sinister goblin commander declares this new territory his own and demands complete obedience. Joshua firmly took a neutral stance, refusing both to fight and to help. The goblin chief laughed mockingly at the attempt of their small group to negotiate terms. With the sharp tip of his finger, he prepares to pronounce his simple ultimatum. He demands a terrible thing: to sacrifice 10 living demons every year. He admits that he craves more weapons made from their incredibly strong horns. Leaning forward in anger, Joshua shouts that they will never give anyone away. Demi-Tiger Balon watches, irritated by the goblin's arrogant challenge. Confidently stepping forward, Joshua showed that he is the very skilled mage craftsman they were looking for. Massive orc commander Bish twitched an eye and interest sparkled in it. Balon confidently says that Joshua's craftsmanship is unmatched. He has seen it with his own eyes. Joshua suddenly understands everything. Perhaps this is how Balon decided to propose it. He staggered, understanding what a huge sacrifice it means to become Bish's personal slave. Only the thought that his friends will be able to live peacefully makes this terrible price justified. Ilia grabs his hand firmly. Her grip does not let go. She swears never to leave him alone. He throws in his face, "Why do you sacrifice yourself for them?" Leaning out from behind her back, he still considers his self-sacrifice an acceptable option. Ilia fervently reminds him that he fought for everyone, not just for himself. He swears with burning confidence she will never leave such a devoted person. Meta and the fox girl shout jealously, "Joshua is ours." Ilia sharply cuts off, saying he is only hers and all other claims seem pathetic to him. Meta criticizes Ilia for trying to act grown-up, although she just argued. Embarrassed Joshua insists that now is not the time for their quarrels. The girls closed ranks and swore they will never give up Mr. Joshua. Vale is great and irritated, and the hostile commander laughs at their inner chaos. Bish admits that he never intended to negotiate, he planned to take them by force. Roaring, the orc commander gives the order to his army, which is ready. Attack. Meta rushed into the thick of the battle and shouted to the opponents, "Don't make the fight boring." The orc warrior grimaced in a sinister sneer, angry at the audacity of the half-human woman. Her heavy weapon clashes with his metal creaks under immense force. The blow shatters the orc's weapon into pieces and cracks crawl across the ground. His calm gaze whispered distrust. He is struck by her impossible display of strength. The goblin commander encourages his warriors and sternly orders, "Do not lose your heads." Meta confidently exclaims that their combined strength can defeat the enemies. Demi-Tiger Balon receives the order to attack the enemy from the rear. Joshua realizes that the enemy knows about his hidden troops, but he remains confident anyway. Turning to Ilia, Metaval must become a shield for Joshua against any approaching enemies. Meta shouts with desperate urgency, "Ilia, forward to battle." Ilia trusts Meta and is already preparing to rush forward. Ilia, with a powerful leap, crashes onto the horde of goblins, sword raised high. Her blade becomes a blurred ribbon. With one swing, it cuts down several goblins. Goblins howl in pain and rage at her fierce attack. Meta cries groans in pain, intercepting an attack aimed at Joshua. Ilia single-handedly holds the defense and does not retreat when several goblins attack her. The goblin commander stands, unable to believe his own eyes as his troops fall at the hands of the Demi. Enraged, he fiercely questions the honor of his soldiers who faltered. Meta and Joshua notice the commotion behind and, filled with curiosity, wonder, what is happening there? In panic, a goblin soldier rushes to his leader and shouts that there is trouble in their ranks. He says their rear is under attack. Demi-tigers have betrayed them. Joshua stares in shock, suddenly realized Balon's mercenaries have joined the fight. White Wolf Murk rushes to Joshua to report the situation. Joshua admits to Murk that he did not expect such a sudden turn of events at all. Doubting Balon's motives, he decides to give a new order. He orders Murk to start the operation but not to touch the Demi-tigers. The goblin commander grits his teeth and fiercely curses Balon for the betrayal. Balon's troops mercilessly attack the goblins, who are sobbing from the vile betrayal. Murk's sudden howl made the goblin soldiers freeze in the middle of the battle. The house gave a sign. Winged Tengu spectacularly emerged from the forest. Horned demons and werewolves emerge from the darkness, revealing more and more of their hidden powers. The goblin leaders only mock they had known about the hidden troops all along. A gigantic water whirl crashes down with a roar, covering the goblin army. A powerful stream sweeps away their ranks, scattering the last soldiers across the field. Orc's commander, Bish, listens attentively as Iliad announces the end of the battle. He offers to spare their lives if they now retreat to their native land. Bish struck the ground so hard it trembled and declared himself king of all orcs. He boasts that he is the strongest and destined one day to kill the demon king. The blonde warrior Ilia confesses to the orc commander Bish about her demonic origin. Laughing out loud, Bish cruelly said that her lost horn went to his weapon. Ilia firmly denies this. She says the horn is the very one her father returned to her. A gleam of recognition flashed across Bish's face. He understood who she was. He recognizes her Ultra, the daughter of the demon chief with whom he once fought. She exploded, fiercely denying his accusation that her father fled, but Bish corrected her. He says that her father fled only after he lost his horn. He no longer had the strength to fight. Then the orc commander tells her to look carefully at his weapon. Twisting the spear in his hands, he shows its tip is made from her father's horn. With a sadistic smile, he promises to hang her horn right next to the one on her body. Ilia, enraged, lunged forward, her sword fiercely striking his weapon. Bish mockingly asks if she is losing her composure, her face twisted with rage. She attacks mercilessly, demanding that he return the horn he should not have. The orc commander indifferently pushes her away and throws, "Your father is a weakling." In a painful memory, she sees her father sacrificing himself to retrieve her horn. Overcome with grief, she screams and stubbornly denies, insisting that her father was not weak. From the side, her friends shout warnings, urging her not to pay attention to his mockery. Blinded by fury, she makes a wild, overly wide swing and completely misses. Bish seizes the opportunity and lowers his heavy weapon in a devastating arc. The attack struck with incredible speed, and Ilia was left standing in shock. Joshua acts instantly, desperately uttering a spell to raise a protective wall. From the ground, in a bright flash of magic, a solid stone wall rose. The weapon crashes into the barrier with a deafening, explosive impact. The wall shattered into pieces, but this saved Ilia. The shockwave threw him back. Joshua rushes to her, calls her by name. She lies amid the ruins. Lifting her, he listens as she apologizes for her reckless actions. The ally intently watches Bish's armor, and Joshua prepares to distract. Ilia grabs his hand, her eyes filled with new determination. He reminds him of that promise to face this challenge together. Looking at the majestic commander, Joshua quietly agrees to her plan. Exchanging determined glances, they decide to defeat him as a team. From afar, Bish roars with rage, calling them weaklings for their efforts. He categorically states that they will never be able to defeat him. A mighty explosion thundered in the bays and in the heads of the armored figures, throwing them back with a shockwave. The red-haired ally emotionally recounts his desperate move, throwing a bag of coal. He irritably notes that although he set him on fire, the enemy General Bish is still alive. In the clouds of smoke, Bish stands at full height and loudly proclaims that he is the strongest warrior on the battlefield. Commander York is suddenly shocked by the unexpected surge of power from his enemy. Ilias's sword clashes with the bishop's weapons with a rumble, sparks flying from the impact. The blade groans under the immense pressure of the overwhelming orc force. The tension from their weapons locking is palpable. The ground cracks beneath them. An ally or soldier stands at the edge of the battlefield, holding his breath as he watches Ilia's desperate struggle. Joshua notices that the tide of the great battle sharply turns in their favor. He finally understands, for Ilia, defeating Bish is revenge for the death of her father. Bish laughs maniacally, teasing her, saying that demons without horns are powerless. Ilia's hands began to bleed. She gripped the sword hilt with such furious strength. Seeing that she begins to falter, Joshua shouted words of encouragement, assuring her that she could do it. Bish recoils in shock, looking at her with a question. Where does the sudden surge of strength he feels come from? Dark energy swirls around Ilia's sword, and it begins to absorb blood from her hands. The orc is stunned, her strength suddenly and inexplicably increased. The horned demoness realized with trepidation that Ilia's blade is sucking her blood. With a primal wild scream, Ilia is enveloped by a powerful, swirling dark aura. Suddenly everything changes, and Bish retreats under the pressure of the female Demi. He struggles to hold his ground, his feet digging into the soil under her immense pressure. Spectators froze. They cannot believe that the Orc King is losing. A loud crack is heard. The massive weapon of Bish begins to bend. Ilia delivers the final, decisive blow. The enemy's weapon shatters into pieces, and the opponent is felled. The remaining Orc soldiers whispered in disbelief, seeing their fallen leader. Ilia stands victorious over the fallen body of Commander Bish. The Orcs just stood, stunned. Their leader and commander is now gone. They are stunned. Their seemingly invincible commander has been killed. The goblin soldier shudders as the bitter truth reaches him. Their general has lost. The horned demoness triumphantly shouts that Ilia has killed the enemy general. The entire allied army erupts in a huge cry of victory. Smoke slowly rises from the quiet battlefield after the last shout. Joshua looks confused, with relief on his face, quietly realizing that they have won. A diverse group of Demi-Human joyfully celebrates their hard-won victory together. Amid the festive bustle, Ilia and the horned woman share a tearful, joyful moment. The mercenaries Demi-Tiger rustle among the trophies of war, gathering loot. Joshua calls their leader a cat-like half-human named Balon. He approaches Balon to sincerely thank them for the decisive help. Balon brushes off the thanks, saying they just took advantage of his success. He says they simply sided with the winners, that's all. With a sly smile, he says betrayal is their specialty. Joshua does not give up and thanks again, despite Balon's cynical jabs. Balon repeats, no need to thank, they take all the loot. He admits they have already decided to switch sides because it was harming their business. Joshua's heart tightens with anxiety for the future, knowing their betrayal will have consequences. He extends an invitation from frank mercenaries to join their Demi-Alliance. Balon froze at the unexpected and generous offer. A slight smile plays on Balon's lips as he thoughtfully considers the offer. He politely declined, explaining that he is hard to please and that sitting in one place is not for him. Joshua smiles warmly and assures him that they will gladly welcome him at any time. Balon admits that if things go completely wrong, he might consider it, but warns they are selfish. Twisting the weapon in his hand, he throws to Joshua, prepare for such a possibility. Joshua watches as the mercenaries leave, waving goodbye. On the quiet battlefield, Ilia stands over the fallen body of Bish. She kneels down, all attention focused on something on the ground. Joshua sees her and rushes to her side. He enthusiastically congratulates her on the victory over such a powerful opponent. Joshua sadly agreed, their enemy was indeed incredibly strong. Ilia looks at him and says that he also avenged his native city. He modestly insists that this victory is not hers alone. He says that without Josh and all their friends, this would not have happened. With tears of relief, she whispers that she finally got him back. She carefully takes the spearhead carved from her father's horn. Joshua notices that Balon took most of the loot but left the demon's horns. Ilia hands him her father's horn for the good of the entire village. She asks him to hold it tightly until the time comes. Joshua accepts her request, nods confidently, and quietly says, "Okay." The horned woman could not believe it did they really defeat the army. She gives all the credit for their victory to Joshua's leadership. A small creature resembling a fox agreed, knowing that he was smart. The fox gently presses its nose to Joshua's leg, showing its admiration. Other girls also joined in, kindly patting him on the head as a sign of gratitude. Ilia smiled warmly, agreeing that it was all thanks to Mr. Joshua. One of the girls confessed that they were able to win only because he was with them. Joshua quietly refutes their claims, raising his eyes to the sky. He insists that their victory happened because everyone gave all their strength. He sincerely, from the heart, smiles and thanks them all. He looked at their huge village behind the high walls and said, "It's time to go home." Next day, a clear and calm sky spread over the village wall. The winged scout Sukhaka swiftly descended from the sky and called Joshua. She reported that there was not a single trace of the enemy army in the south. Relieved, Joshua suggests holding a feast that evening in honor of the victory. He decides to walk through the village to see if anyone needs anything. His peaceful walk is interrupted by loud shouts and the clashing of weapons. He finds Meta on the training field. She is shouting at her students because of their weakness. At the moment Meta sees Joshua approaching, her stern gaze softens. He rushes to him and excitedly calls out his name. He proudly asks if he has come to see her heroic figure. He explained that he was just checking the supplies, and she beamed with a smile and said they have everything. He kindly offers to do anything she desires. Meta freezes in thought, pondering what else she wants. She silently nods and her gaze is fixed on him with anxious tension. Her burning, flushed gaze leaves Joshua completely bewildered. Surrounded by question marks, he looks at her and asks, "What's wrong?" He smiles and suggests if she is shy, she can whisper her request to him. Accepting his offer, she tugged his sleeve and asked him to listen to her. She leaned in so close, gently covered his ear with her palm and whispered her secret. He whispers a shocking request. She wants to have children with him. Joshua's face twisted pure, sincere shock at her words. Meta clearly says she wants many of them, her expression sincere and serious. Overcome with panic, Joshua let out a fearful scream and ran away. Frightened by Meta's proposal, Joshua panicked and dashed away, blood flowing from him like a scared sheep. With eyes spinning in spirals, he reflects on his humiliating escape like a sheep. Hiding behind the house, he admits to himself, he almost lost his mind. Murk finds him, sees his flushed face, and he immediately says he was just running. By the way, Murk proudly says that the refrigerator has become even colder. Hearing this practical news, Joshua suddenly realized they will soon need a bigger refrigerator. He thinks about how lucky they were on the hunt and decisively decides to introduce a daily limit. Agreeing, Murk unhesitatingly takes on setting the new hunting limit to prevent overfishing. Joshua becomes serious and says they need to talk about something important. With shining eyes, Murk directly and completely unexpectedly proposes to him. Her sudden and serious statement stunned him. He was stunned and froze in silence. He calmly continues, their next step is to have a child. He explains this child will become the heir of her tribe. Confused, Joshua suddenly realizes she is proposing that they officially get engaged right now. Leaning closer, she whispered to him that werewolves cannot marry until they become adults. A small, confident smile plays on her lips as she waits for his decision. He reluctantly agrees to pretend, hoping that she will later find someone else. Having proclaimed him as hers, she tightly pressed him to herself in a close, possessive embrace. Completely stunned by her action, Joshua demanded to know what she was doing. She says she is marking him with her scent to declare that he is hers. Embarrassed, Joshua patiently accepts her gentle nose presses as she places her mark on him. Little Slime PSHH appears, shouting their names and marveling at what it sees. Later, Asuha easily hovers in the air. She can't wait to show Joshua how well she has learned to fly. He gently tells her that she doesn't need to, she already flies beautifully. Suddenly, Murk appears, breaking their silence and grabbing Suha by the hand. Joshua found himself between them, and the darkness pulled at his clothes, demanding attention. Murk tells Asuha that she is being a nuisance, but Asuha stubbornly insists on her demonstration. Joshua, trying to mediate, asks Murk to wait, and Asuha promises to be quick. Asuha prepares to release her magic, waving the wand with a determined stroke. To his surprise, her wind magic suddenly lifted Joshua into the air. He looks down, stunned by the strange sensation, as if floating. Asuha proudly explains that her practice of victory magic has brought her new abilities. Now she not only flies herself, she lifts others into the sky as well. Joshua let out a cry of pure astonishment upon seeing her incredible new skill. Together they saw high above the sprawling village what he calls stunning. Suha looks at him while he admiringly enjoys the amazing view from above. She recalls hearing that he was the one who helped the one empty village grow so quickly. He modestly admits that he only crafted things while everyone else gathered materials. She looks at him with admiration and notes his modesty. Smiling warmly, he softly replied that she is not selfish either. A pensive expression appears on her face as she prepares to ask. Soaring in the sky, she asks if she can be selfish even for a moment. Surprised, Joshua agrees if only it is within his power. Sukhev loudly shouted a marriage proposal, and Joshua began to scream in despair. She sincerely promises to always take care of him and never cause him trouble. She adds that she will not tease him in front of others. Before he could react, she grabbed him in a tight embrace right in the air. She clarifies that she will only tease him where no one can see them. Clinging to him, she begs him to know how much she loves him. Embarrassed, Joshua acknowledges her feelings, but it seems this situation overwhelms him. Suddenly, behind him appears a creepy demonic figure radiating a dark aura. He shuddered. He was gripped by a murderous feeling that made him tremble with fear. Below, the peasants whisper anxiously, sensing an oppressive presence. Suddenly, it turns out, the figure wears a terrifying horned mask. The mighty presence of Oni stunned all of Joshua's senses. He begins to sway and tremble, losing balance in the air. In panic, he shouts that he is completely losing balance. Suha screams his name as they both start to fall rapidly from the sky. Below, Ilia recalls a mythical creature with a creepy, otherworldly face. Memory takes shape, the image of the Hanya mask and Oni appears. She remembers the last time Hanyu called her by name. The creature's face has already become her own, and she froze in horror. As Joshua falls, he resigns himself to his fate and thinks that this is the end for him. A strange calm overtakes him. He believes that he will probably die soon. His consciousness is fading, and the last thing he hears is Ilias's quiet scream. His world spins back in a dizzying flash. He is suspended in a jelly-like bubble. Lying on the ground, he touches his face, relieved and at the same time puzzled that he is still alive. Ilia explains that the flips somehow softened during the fall and are now completely exhausted. He asks where everyone is, and he gasps as if he just saw something forbidden. Elsewhere, other girls are bustling about, preparing for the evening banquet. Ilia, smiling, tells Joshua that everyone is in a good mood and getting along. Joshua smiles, already planning to stock up on food for the coming days. He turned back to Ilia and suggested going to gather again. She agreed. With a gentle gesture, Joshua tenderly takes her hand in his. He chuckles quietly and squeezes her hand tighter, touched by her calm happiness. Ilia, with a radiant smile, confidently declared that they will always be together. He looks at their village and says how happy he is to be next to her. Joshua smiled warmly, showing that he too was happy and agreed with her.